I wake to the sound of glass against wood. A faint clink, barely a breath, yet sharp enough to pull me from a shallow, trembling sleep. The room is still dark, coal smoke pressed low against the window, blocking out even the weak London morning. My hands move before I think, searching the bedside. Floorboards for the small brown bottle that rolled from my fingers sometime in the night. The chill of it bites like metal. My mouth is dry. My heartbeat feels too loud in the quiet, and somewhere deep inside my ribs, a slow ache begins again, the kind that only one thing can soothe. I tell myself not to take another sip, not this early, not when the last one was barely a whisper ago. But the city is waking. I can hear carriage wheels in the distance, boots slapping wet cobblestones, the restless hum of miseries happening behind every thin wall. Victorian London devours the weak. You learn that fast. And before the light fully touches the curtains, I know what I'm going to do. If you're settling in with me tonight, listening in the dark, tap the heart on this story. Subscribe and stay with me in a city where medicine becomes poison and comfort becomes a trap. There are still darker corridors to walk and deeper nights to sink into. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? The past is never as distant as it seems. The cork loosens beneath my thumb. The scent of opium rises sweet, rotting, hypnotic. People think laudanum addicts drift gently through velvet dreams, but they don't see the shaking hands, the hollow nights, the way your mind frays at its edges until reality feels like wet paper. Out there, the city carries on. Factory whistles, river fog, gas lamps flickering like sickly yellow eyes. But in here, in the dim room where the wallpaper curls like dying leaves, you learn the truth. This is what laudanum really does. This is what it steals. You wake before the city does, before the clatter of hooves on wet stones, before the river barges groan through the morning fog, before the first whisper of dawn even thinks of climbing the edge of the window. It is the sound that stirs you, not loud, not sudden, just a hollow tap against the wooden floorboards, as soft as a teardrop falling. For a moment you lie perfectly still, unsure whether you dreamed it. Then the ache in your bones returns, heavy and familiar, crawling through your chest like a slow, knowing hand. You reach out, searching in the dark. Your fingers touch cold glass. The bottle has rolled from its resting place beside the bed again. Your breath tightens. Even in the dimness, your mind sees the shape of it clearly, dark, narrow, harmless to anyone who has never needed it. Your thumb finds the cork, still sealed, though only barely. The bottle is lighter than it should be. You knew that before you picked it up. Your nights are measured in doses now, in how many drops your body begged for as the room spun and the pain throbbed behind your ribs. You turn onto your back slowly, staring at the ceiling as though it might offer comfort, but the plaster only blurs into drifting shadows. Somewhere beyond the window, coal smoke sits thick and unmoving, sealing you inside with the stale breath of last night's despair. You sit up. The blanket slips. From your shoulder, cold air scraping your skin like a reprimand. Every morning feels like this, waking too early, shaking too much, waiting for your heart to remember its rhythm. Your hand trembles as you hold the bottle to the thin stripe of grey light sneaking between the curtains. The liquid inside moves sluggishly, clinging to the glass like something alive. You know the sound it makes when it pours, syrupy, slow, comforting in a way that feels shameful to crave. But the ache in your chest is growing sharper, and your throat feels coated in dust. You swallow hard. The taste of yesterday's dose lingers, bitter and metallic at the back of your tongue. For a moment, just one, you imagine placing the bottle back on the floor and walking away, standing tall, breathing clean air, becoming something you used to be. But the thought passes like a weak breeze through a dying house. The silence presses closer. Your heartbeat stutters. Your fingers uncork the bottle as though acting on their own. The sweet, rotting scent rises immediately, warm and familiar. It curls into your nose, down your throat, settling into that hollow space in your chest with a promise you once believed was gentle. A promise that has become a chain. You lift the bottle. Your hand shakes, but not enough to spill. The first drop touches your tongue, and the relief is instant, sharp, consuming, frightening in its ease. The ache withdraws. The trembling quiets. The corners of the room soften, as though the world itself is exhaling with you. But behind the soothing warmth lurks something else, something you pretend not to feel. The faint tug of a deeper hunger, one dose away from becoming unbearable. You sit there in the dim hush, the bottle still in your hand, wondering how a single sip could feel like both salvation and surrender. Outside, the city begins to wake slowly, unwillingly, but you stay where you are, listening to the creak of the old floorboards and the steadying beat of your heart. The first light climbs the curtains, brushing your face with a pale glow that looks almost kind. Almost. The bottle rests against your palm, warm now from your touch, and you realize you've already shaped your morning around it. London may swallow many things, but you know this truth better than most. The day has not begun until the first dose takes hold. The street outside is barely awake when you step into it, pulling your coat tight against the cold that settles into every joint. London smells of damp wool and coal ash, the kind of morning that makes the city feel older than it is, older than you, older than whatever life you once imagined for yourself. The fog clings low, brushing your knees, swirling around carriage wheels as if deciding whether to drag you under. You walk slowly, careful with each step. The dose has softened your edges but not sharpened your balance. The bottle in your coat pocket feels like a heartbeat of its own, tapping gently against your ribs when you move too quickly. Shops emerge from the haze one by one. The baker, already awake and dusted in flour, the lamplighter finishing his rounds, the tired woman sweeping the steps of a lodging house where someone sobbed through the night. But it's the narrow storefront at the end of the lane that draws you onward, the apothecary with its crooked sign and window full of amber jars. Before you even reach the door, the scent reaches you. Lavender, camphor, turpentine, laudanum. You breathe it in like prayer. A small bell rings overhead as you step inside. The air here is warm, thick with medicinal perfumes and the faint sweetness of opium that settles in the cracks of the wooden floor. Shelves tower around you, packed with powders, syrups, and tonics promising relief for every human misery. The man behind the counter, Mr. Fletcher, looks up with the same polite smile he always wears. Not friendly, not warm, just practiced. "Rough night?" he asks gently, though he never truly asks. He only observes. He has seen enough faces like yours to read them without effort. You nod, pretending the stiffness in your neck is from sleep, rather than the hours spent pacing between fever and panic. Mr. Fletcher reaches under the counter and sets a familiar brown bottle before you. He does not ask for your name. He does not request a prescription. His hands move with the easy rhythm of habit, as though you are one of many who arrive at this hour seeking the same quiet mercy. For a moment you notice something strange. His eyes flicker not with judgment, but with a trace of pity he tries to swallow. It is gone almost immediately, buried beneath his routine smile. "Careful with this batch," he says softly. Stronger than the last. The words should frighten you. Instead, they loosen something inside your chest, something tight and hungry. Stronger means you might sleep tonight without waking, gasping for the next dose. Stronger means the trembling might settle sooner. Stronger means silence in your mind. Coins clink onto the counter. Mr. Fletcher hands you the bottle wrapped in paper, his fingers lingering for half a second too long, not enough to comfort, not enough to stop you, only enough to say he knows exactly what he is participating in. But the shop is full of such transactions. London runs on, pain traded for coin, relief traded for futures. You step back into the fog, the bell chiming behind you. The bottle warms through the paper, soothing your palm. Down the street, a child coughs in a doorway. A woman calls after her husband. A constable lights his pipe on the corner, watching. The city's miseries stroll past him like old acquaintances. Someone brushes against your shoulder, muttering an apology. You hardly hear it. All your attention is on the weight in your pocket, the promise it carries, the hunger it answers. You walk home faster than before, not because you are eager for the day, but because you need the safety of your room, the quiet of your walls, the thin space between dose and despair, where life still feels bearable. Behind you, the apothecary's door closes, shutting away the man with the practiced smile who will sell the same bottle to someone else in an hour. Someone whose footsteps already echo yours. London feeds its hungers, and yours is only beginning. The fog thickens by the time you turn onto the narrow stretch of road that leads home, so dense it feels alive, curling around your ankles, coiling up the brick walls like something searching for a way inside. London has many mornings like this, but today the mist carries a heaviness that mirrors the weight in your chest. The city feels suspended, caught between night and day, as if time itself hesitates to move forward. Lamps glow faintly behind the haze, each halo of light trembling like a candle struggling to stay lit. You move toward them anyway, drawn the way a moth is drawn to, anything that looks like warmth. The street you step onto next has always felt trapped in its own time. Even at noon, its windows stay shuttered, its doors closed, its tenants moving ghost-like between shadows. But in these early hours, before the clatter of carts and the shouts of porters, it feels deserted, frozen under a blanket of grey that smothers every sound. You pause at the corner, listening. Nothing. Not even the distant ringing of a bell or the flapping of a pigeon's wings. Only your breath. Too loud, too uneven. You walk slowly at first, careful not to slip on the slick cobblestones. The houses here lean toward each other, as if conspiring to hide the secrets inside. Laundry lines stretch overhead like pale skeletons. A cracked lantern swings from a post, its glass smeared and cloudy. The silence presses deeper with every step. It is the kind of quiet that feels wrong, unnatural in a city that usually groans, shouts, curses, coughs its way through every waking hour. But this street never fully wakes. Its residents drift through it half alive, weighed down by sickness, poverty, or secrets that thrive best in dim rooms. You know the shade of your own window from a distance. The thin, yellowed curtain drawn tight, the crooked gutter dripping into a tin cup below. You stop before climbing the steps, steadying yourself on the railing that wobbles under your grip. For a moment, you look up and down the street again, searching for signs of life. Across the way, the tailor's shop stands dark. The shoemaker's window is clouded with dust. The boarding house door sways slightly as if someone passed through moments ago, or as if a draft from nowhere pushed it. Then a sound cuts through the stillness, not loud, but sharp enough to make your heart leap. A cough, dry, violent echoes from an upstairs window. Another follows, muffled and ragged. You stand frozen, listening as the hacking fit drags on, each breath sounding more pained than the last. This street is full of such coughs, consumptives, factory workers, chimney sweeps, breathing soot instead of air. Their misery blends with yours until you can no longer tell where their suffering ends and your own begins. The fit stops suddenly. A silence swallows the space it leaves behind. You feel the urge to move, to escape before the weight of the street settles entirely in your bones. You climb the steps and push open your door, wincing at the familiar creak. The hallway inside smells of damp wood and boiled cabbage, and your own room waits at the end like a dark mouth, hungry to greet you. But before you close the door, you glance back one last time. The street has not changed. It remains suspended, cold and watchful, the fog clinging to its stones like a burial shroud. A single lamp flickers, then steadies. A raven lands on a chimney, shaking droplets from its wings. Otherwise, nothing stirs. It strikes you then this road has seen countless people rise and fall, vanish and return, fight and surrender. But it remembers none of them. It swallows their footfalls, their voices, their grief, and gives nothing back. You step inside, shutting the door behind you with a soft thud. Out there, the street never wakes. In here, neither do you not fully. You close the door gently behind you, letting the dim hallway fade into darkness as you enter your room. The quiet inside is different from the silence of the street. Out there, the world feels suspended, half alive and waiting. In here, the quiet is heavier, thicker, something that settles into your lungs, your clothes, your bones. A small draft slips under the window, carrying with it the chill of the fog-soaked morning. The curtain flutters weakly, as though trying to breathe on your behalf. You set your coat across the back of the chair and ease yourself down onto the bed, the mattress sagging under your weight with a sigh that mirrors your own. Your hand drifts automatically to the bottle in your pocket. You don't take it out right away. You let it rest there for a moment, letting the warmth of your skin seep into the glass. The ache that woke you still lingers, curling through your shoulders and spine, reminding you of how thin the line is between relief and ruin. You lean back slowly, closing your eyes. The room smells faintly of damp wool, old paper, and the lingering sweetness of last night's dose. For a moment, you allow yourself to rest in the stillness, no street noise, no footsteps above, only the faint ticking of the clock on your bedside table. Then the trembling begins again. It starts small, a quiver in your fingertips, a quickened breath. You know the signs. You recognize them the way a sailor recognizes the first wind of a fight, coming storm. The world around you seems to pulse faintly, the corners of the room softening and tightening with each heartbeat. You sit up, swallowing against the dryness in your throat. The bottle comes out easily, your hand moving with the precision of habit. The cork gives its familiar little pop, releasing a breath of opium and wine that seeps into the air like incense. You inhale slowly, and the ache inside you loosens, as if the scent alone is enough to convince your body that help is coming. The first sip burns slightly, always a small sting before the sweetness settles. You hold it on your tongue for a heartbeat, then swallow, feeling the warmth bloom through your chest. The trembling quiets. Your breath steadies. The sharp edges of the room begin to melt, softening into gentle curves and muted colors. You sink back again, the pillow cool against your temple, and feel the familiar wave rise through you, slow, warm, enveloping. This is the part you pretend is harmless, the gentle easing of your muscles, the soft hum behind your eyelids, the drifting sense that the world is finally still, finally kind, finally something you can endure. You let your eyes close, and the first sweet sleep of the day begins to unfurl inside your mind. It comes like warm hands around your skull, like a lullaby sung from far away, like a door closing on everything that hurt only moments ago. The sunlight that slips between the curtains seems softer now, golden instead of grey. Dust particles drift lazily in the sighing air, moving like tiny lanterns suspended in water. The distant coughing, the creaking floorboards, the weight of the morning, they all fade. You feel yourself drifting into a softness that feels almost sacred, as though the bottle has carved out a small, temporary heaven just for you. But beneath the comfort, something else stirs. A faint warning, a quiet shift, a reminder that this sweetness is not free, that each peaceful breath you take now will be borrowed back later with interest. Still, you let the thought slip away. For now, the warmth carries you downward into sleep, heavy, deep, irresistible. Your fingers loosen their grip on the bottle. Your heartbeat slows, and for a little while, just a little while, you feel safe. The sleep does not last. It never does not anymore. What comes after the first wave of sweetness is a drifting darkness, thick and unsteady, a half-dream where your mind floats without direction. At first it feels peaceful, the way clouds might feel if they could sleep. But even clouds grow, heavy, and so does this sleep. The warmth fades quicker than you expect, like a hand slipping from yours in a crowded street. You shift beneath the blanket, still wrapped in the fading comfort of the dose, unaware that the next ache has already begun to gather in the hollow places you try so desperately to ignore. An hour passes, maybe less, maybe more. Time is untrustworthy when the mind is fogged. The first sharp pulse hits low in your ribs, a faint sting at the edge of your consciousness. You groan softly, half asleep, hoping it will settle. Instead, it crawls upward, curling around your lungs and tightening like a rope, pulling slowly, deliberately. You draw in a breath and hear the faintest rattle, a sound you pretend isn't there. The dull ache spreads down your arms, through your fingertips. You squeeze your hands into fists, trying to hold on to what little calm remains. The room lies unchanged when you open your eyes, grey light behind the curtains, dust drifting, the slow tick of the clock. But something in the air has shifted. It feels colder, heavier, as though the walls themselves are pressing inward. You try to sit up, and the ache sharpens, slicing across your chest. You gasp, clutching the blanket with trembling fingers. This pain is different from the usual morning agony. It is sharper, deeper, like claws scraping bone. You reach for the bottle on the bedside table, but your hand stops halfway. Not yet, you tell yourself. Not so soon. Even the part of you that craves it knows there should be space-time between doses, a semblance of control. You swallow hard and force yourself to lie back down. The ceiling swims above you, its cracks weaving together like crooked branches. You blink slowly, struggling to steady your focus. But the pain does not wait. It grows in short bursts, each wave crashing harder than the last. The sweet haze from earlier has drained from your veins, leaving behind only the raw nerves it once soothed. Your heart pounds unevenly, too fast 1 second, too slow the next. A light sweat gathers at your hairline and trickles along your temple, chilling you as it slides down your cheek. You press your palms to your eyes, willing the ache to ease, but pressure only deepens the pulse. A distant sound filters through the window, the cry of a carriage driver, the clang of a distant bell, the wet cough of a stranger walking past. Normally, these are the noises that anchor you to the world outside, small reminders that life continues beyond the confines of your room. But today they feel cruel, mocking the way your body twists and trembles in the half-light. You inhale shakily, the ache now blooming, like fire beneath your ribs. It takes only minutes for the panic to rise. It always begins quietly, just a whisper at the back of your mind, suggesting that the pain will not stop this time, that something vital is slipping, that perhaps this is the moment the bottle cannot fix. Your breath quickens, your fingers tingle, your vision narrows into a restless, pulsing tunnel. You try to stand, but your legs falter beneath you, dropping you back onto the bed. The ceiling above flickers, shapes bending faintly at the edges. A shadow moves in the corner, not real, you tell yourself. Just the ache playing tricks. But the fear does not leave. The pain sharpens once more, and you curl inward, biting back a cry. Your hand finds the bottle again, not gently this time, not with hesitation. The cork comes loose with a desperate pop, and the scent floats upward, sweet, thick, familiar. Relief waits inside, patient and merciless. You lift it to your lips with trembling hands, knowing exactly what this means, knowing exactly where this road leads. The pain does not care, the bottle does. And as you swallow, letting the warmth flood through you again, you understand something, quietly, painfully true. It isn't the sweetness you're chasing anymore, it's the fear you're running from. By afternoon, your body has settled into that uneasy balance. It knows too well the sweetness of the last dose still humming in your veins, but the edges already beginning to fray. You need air, or at least the illusion of it, so you pull on your coat and step back into the world. The fog has lifted slightly, replaced by a dull, overcast glow that makes the streets look washed out, as though the city has been drained of color. You join the crowd moving toward Fleet Market, letting their motion carry you like a leaf drifting in a current. The noise grows louder with every step. Hawkers shouting prices, horses snorting, the clatter of crates and barrels being dragged across uneven stones. You move through it quietly, your footsteps lost beneath the roar. London bustles around you, vendors waving fish still dripping from the Thames, butchers calling out cuts of meat, women clutching baskets and hurrying through the press of bodies as though chased by errands that never end. The market is its own kind of chaos, but you don't mind it. Noise can drown out the thudding of your own thoughts, can blur the ache that threatens from beneath the surface. You slip past a baker shouting over the din and turn into the narrow alley behind the market, the one you've used for years to escape the crush of the crowd. It is darker here, a long corridor of damp stone walls and flickering shadows. The noise of the market fades by half as soon as you step inside. The air smells of stale beer, rotting vegetables, and something metallic you try not to think about. You walk without hurrying, careful not to slip on the wet stones. It's in this narrow darkness that your body begins to remind you of the cycle you live inside. The warmth is fading faster than usual, and your hands twitch at your sides, small spasms at first, then sharper ones you try to hide by clenching your fists. The alley is empty, except for a stray cat pawing at a crust of bread near a tipped-over crate. It lifts its head when you pass, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, unblinking, suspicious. You avoid its stare. Halfway down the alley, a wave of dizziness hits. You brace yourself against the wall, fingertips pressing into the damp brick. The pain isn't back fully, not yet, but its presence lurks beneath the skin like a warning. You take slow breaths, trying to steady the trembling that rises in your chest. You hate how quickly your body has learned to need what the bottle gives. You hate the way your thoughts narrow the moment the sweetness begins to fade. But hatred does nothing against the ache. It never has. A group of boys runs past the alley's entrance, laughing, their voices echoing through the corridor like a memory from a lifetime ago. You straighten slowly, waiting for your vision to settle. The ache pulses in your ribs, then quiets. Not gone, never gone, but less urgent. You continue your slow walk to the alley's end, where a small wooden door leads to a back lane you often use as a shortcut home. When you push the door open, a gust of cold air hits your face, sharp enough to make your eyes water. You wince, blinking away the sting. The lane beyond is quiet, except for the drip of water from a loose gutter. You step through, letting the door close behind you with a dull thud. For a moment you stand still, listening to your heartbeat, fast, uneven, uncertain. You know what the trembling means. You know you will need another dose soon, sooner than you'd like to admit. But the bottle remains tucked away in your coat, untouched. For now, you tell yourself you can wait until nightfall. You tell yourself you can last a few more hours. The ache pulses once more, soft but insistent. You lie to yourself again. Then you keep walking. You don't intend to visit the doctor, not today. Not with the ache still muted under the faint glow of your last dose. But your feet carry you there anyway, as though the body moves with an instinct older than choice. The surgery sits near the corner of a narrow cross street, a squat brick building with a peeling sign and windows constantly fogged from the breath of the sick. The step creaks as you climb it, and for a moment you hesitate, hand hovering near the door handle. A small part of you still believes that if you simply avoid stepping inside, the truth of your condition won't harden into something undeniable. But the ache pulses faintly, like a reminder, and the reminder becomes a directive. You push the door open, Warm, stale air meets you thick with the lingering scents of carbolic acid, unwashed bodies, and the faint sweetness of old tinctures. The lantern, overhead flickers, casting shadows across the wooden floor where muddy footprints overlap in chaotic patterns. Several chairs line the wall, each occupied by someone who looks worse off than the last. A mother rocking a feverish child, an old man clutching his ribs, a young woman with a bandage around her hand, already seeping through. Eyes lift when you enter, then fall again, each person sinking back into their private misery. You take a seat near the back, folding your hands in your lap to hide the small tremor running through them. The ticking of the wall clock is loud in the cramped room, hammering out each second like a reminder that time moves slowly in places filled with suffering. Your breath shallowly slips in and out as you watch people shuffle through the door to the doctor's office, only to emerge minutes later with the same expression: relief, fear, resignation. When your turn comes, your legs feel too light, too unsteady. You knock softly, though the doctor has already called your name. Inside, the room is cluttered. Vials stacked along shelves, surgical tools soaking in bowls of cloudy water, a cluttered desk with papers arranged in untidy towers. Doctor sits behind the desk, spectacles perched low on his nose. He doesn't look up when you enter. "Sit," he mutters, quill scratching across parchment. You obey, lowering yourself into the chair opposite him. He continues writing as though you aren't there, as though your presence is as routine and unremarkable as the faint groan of the floorboards. Only when he finishes his sentence does he finally lift his gaze briefly and then drops it again. "Well," he says, voice flat, "what is it this time?" The question hits harder than it should, not because it's cruel, but because it's honest. Whatever ailment you once had in the early days, the sleeplessness, the coughing fits, the pain in your ribs, has been overshadowed by something else, something he likely suspects, but doesn't speak aloud. You clear your throat, feeling heat rise in your cheeks. "The freight. Pain," you murmur. "It's worsening." He nods once, absent-mindedly. "And the tincture? Is it helping?" Your pulse jumps. You hesitate. He notices. "Still using it, I assume," he says, not asking, simply stating. You nod. He sighs and finally leans back, rubbing his temples. Laudanum offers comfort, but not cure. You know that. His tone isn't scolding. It's weary. You should try reducing your doses. Slowly, carefully. A laugh almost escapes you, a small, bitter sound, but you swallow it. Reduce the doses, as if the ache will allow it, as if the bottle doesn't command your mornings, your evenings, your sleep, your breath. He reaches for another paper, his quill dipping back into ink. "I'll write you a smaller prescription this time. It's for your own good." You know what smaller means. It means he sees the decline. It means he fears becoming complicit. It means he's trying to slow your spiral, but gently, so gently, as if you might break. When he hands you the slip, his fingers brush yours. His eyes flick upward at last. For one heartbeat, they hold concern, pity, a quiet sort of helplessness. Then he looks away. "Take care," he says softly. You leave without responding, stepping back into the grey light of the street. The wind bites your face, sharper than before. The ache stirs faintly, sensing the threat of scarcity. You fold the prescription in your pocket, every line of it feeling like a warning. The doctor didn't look at you for long, but he looked enough. By the time you reach your doorway again, the sky has dimmed into a dreary, leaden grey, the kind that squeezes the last traces of warmth from the afternoon. You close the door behind you, and the quiet inside your room hits like a physical force. Not the gentle quiet of early morning, but a hollow, echoing stillness that presses against your skin. You set your coat on the chair, the prescription slip still hidden in its pocket like a secret you refuse to acknowledge. The room feels too small, too close, and as you pause in the middle of it, The silence seems to lean in, attentive, waiting. Then the tremor starts. It begins with your fingertips, subtle at first, barely noticeable, a faint flutter beneath the skin. You rub your hands together, pretending it's only the cold seeping into your bones. But cold doesn't climb the arms in waves. Cold doesn't tighten around your throat. Cold doesn't make your breath hitch in your chest. You sit on the edge of the bed, pressing your palms into your knees. The wood beneath your feet feels uneven, tilting slightly, though you know it's only you. The walls blur at the corners, breathing in and out with the slow, rhythmic pulse of your heart. The shaking intensifies, tiny spasms traveling up your arms, then down again like a shiver you can't trap. You clench your fists, knuckles going white, but the more you try to stop it, the more violently your body rebels. This is the hour you dread the space, between fading relief and dawning need. The hour when the sweetness still lingers on your tongue, yet the ache beneath it begins to rise like a tide. You stand, trying to outpace the trembling by moving, by keeping your muscles warm, but your legs feel unsteady, the floor dipping beneath your soles. You pace the narrow length of your room, each step echoing faintly, the boards creaking in protest, as though the house itself can sense your unraveling. A bead of sweat rolls down your back despite the chill. You wipe your brow with a trembling hand, breath coming too fast. Your chest tightens not sharply, not painfully, but with a squeezing pressure that grows with every passing second. You know the feeling well, the body demanding, calling, pleading, a hunger that isn't hunger, a thirst that isn't thirst, something much deeper, something that curls itself around your ribs and pulls. You stop pacing and brace your hands on the table. The room tilts again, your vision rippling as though seen through thin, uneven glass. You blink hard, gripping the edge of the table so tightly your fingers ache. You try to steady your breath, inhale, exhale, but the rhythm slips from you. Fear prickles along your spine. Not panic, not yet, but the memory of it, the ghost of the times it has consumed you completely. Your gaze flicks to the bottle on the bedside table. It's too soon. You know it's too soon. But knowing means nothing when the shaking reaches your shoulders. The tremors climb higher, rattling your jaw, making your teeth tap softly against each other. Your muscles twitch in uneven, startling jerks, and you wrap your arms around yourself, trying to hold your body still. The trembling does not care. It spreads like fire beneath the skin, hot and merciless. You sink onto the bed, curling forward, elbows on your knees, hands pressed to your temples. Your breath comes in shallow pulls now, each one leaving less room for the next. The clock ticks loudly, too loudly, as if marking each second you remain suspended in this unbearable state. Then the ache returns, not a dull throb this time, but a stabbing pulse beneath your ribs, a warning, a promise, a threat. Your body knows what comes next. The shaking is only the beginning, and you, helpless witness to your own unraveling, feel the familiar terror creep in at the edges of your mind. The bottle sits 3 steps away. The shaking hour stretches on, and you already know which one will move first. You light the candle not because you need it, but because the darkness feels heavier tonight, too thick, too close, pressing against the corners of the room with a patience that unsettles you. The match flares briefly, a burst of bright gold, before the wick catches and settles into a thin, wavering flame. It casts a soft glow across the table, illuminating the dust that hangs suspended in the air like fine ash. The light reaches your hands, trembling in your lap, before stretching thinly across the floorboards and climbing the faded wallpaper. For a moment, the room looks almost gentle, but the flame is weak, already low, already dying. You sit beside it, breathing slowly, as though your exhale alone might snuff it out. The trembling hasn't stopped. It simply waits beneath your skin, simmering like something coiled and watching. Every few seconds, a small shudder, ripples through your arms, through your shoulders, through your jaw. You press your fingers together, trying to steady them, but the twitch returns like a stubborn echo. The bottle sits on the table beside the candle, its shadow stretching long and thin like a warning. You've been trying to ignore it for the past half hour, trying to convince yourself that you can wait, that you can make it just a little longer before surrendering again. But the ache beneath your ribs pulses steadily, dragging your attention back toward the bottle's silhouette. You lean forward, elbows resting on the table, your breath warming the small flame. The candle flickers. Its light dims for a moment, then strengthens. You watch it closely, almost desperately, as though the flame's struggle mirrors your own. The room feels colder than before, though whether it's the air or the fever dancing along your spine, you can't be sure. The wind outside groans along the narrow street, pushing against the window in hoarse, uneven breaths. You hear footsteps below a pair, at first, then another set joining, then fading, swallowed by the night. Voices drift upward drunk, laughing, arguing, but they sound far away, muffled by the walls that trap you inside this tight, trembling space. Your shoulders slump. The ache sharpens again, a sudden twist beneath your sternum that forces a quiet gasp from your throat. You grip the edge of the table, eyes squeezing shut as the pain spreads like a slow, poisonous bloom. When you open your eyes again, the candle flame wavers, as though startled. You try to distract yourself. You let your gaze roam the room, searching for anything to anchor you, anything to ground you in the moment. The cracked mirror above the dresser catches your eye, its surface warped, reflecting your shape in broken shards of gold. You look away. The sight of yourself, shivering and hollowed by exhaustion, feels too much like a truth you aren't ready to face. Your thoughts drift to other nights, better ones, quieter ones, when the candlelight felt warm rather than ominous, when the bottle was a comfort rather than a chain. You remember evenings spent reading, evenings spent listening to the rain, evenings when pain was a rare visitor, not a constant companion. But those nights feel distant now, unreachable. The candle hiccups, flame shrinking into a thin thread of light. You reach out instinctively, cupping your hand around it to shield it from the draft. The warmth kisses your palm, fragile and fleeting. You lean closer, whispering a soft breath over the flame, steadying it. It steadies, but barely. There is too little wax left, too little light. Another tremor shakes your hands. The ache rises higher, scraping against your lungs, and the bottle silent, patient, inevitable waits only inches away. Your resolve cracks. You lift the bottle slowly, almost reverently, as though performing a ritual you've repeated 100 times and will repeat 100 more. The cork comes free with a soft pop, the scent rising like a sigh. The candlelight dances in the glass, glowing amber through the dark liquid. You raise it to your lips. As the first drop touches your tongue, the flame dips low again, shrinking, wavering, fighting to hold on. You swallow. Relief spreads, and the candle, faithful to your pattern, flares once more before it begins its slow, inevitable collapse. By the time the dose takes hold again, the candle has burned almost to nothing. A final bead of wax slips down its side, clinging for a moment before falling silently onto the table. The flame sputters, steadies, then shrinks into a trembling glow barely strong enough to light the room. You lean back on the bed, breath loosening as the sweetness spreads slowly through your veins. The trembling quiets. The ache settles into its familiar dull hum, and for a fleeting moment the world feels gentler, less jagged, less cruel. But the quiet doesn't last long. It never does. A noise outside pulls your attention, something between a shout and a laugh. Then another voice joins it, then another. The alley stirs with life, the way it always does once night begins its slow rise over the rooftops. You push yourself upright, moving toward the window with a heaviness that feels older than your bones. Pulling the curtain aside, You gaze down onto the narrow street below. London is awake. Not the London of daylight, the hurried one, the burdened one, the weary one trying to outrun its own misery. No, this is the night version of the city. Raw, unvarnished, hungry. Gas lamps flicker along the road, casting long shadows that stretch across the cobblestones like grasping fingers. Vendors still cluster near the corners, selling pies and cheap gin. A woman in a frayed shawl paces back and forth beneath a lamppost, calling to men who pass with their collars turned high. Children dart between groups, nimble as rats. Stray dogs rummage through rubbish piles, their ribs sharp beneath their fur. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, someone is selling something meant to soothe, to numb, to distract, to erase. Gin shops glow like warm hollows in the cold. Apothecaries remain, open far later than they should, promising cure-alls and sleep tonics and quieting draughts. Men linger outside taverns clutching bottles, their arguments shifting swiftly from laughter to shouting, and in the dark corners, unmarked doors, unlit basements, narrow back rooms, stronger things pass, hand to hand in vials and packets and drops. You watch the street with a strange, sinking clarity. This city does not merely allow your vice, it cultivates it, it feeds it, it thrives on it. Your fingers drift to the bottle resting loosely in your lap. You hold it up against the window, tilting it slightly so the lamplight catches in the glass. Half full, maybe less. Enough for tonight, perhaps enough for tomorrow morning. After that, you will need to return to Mr. Stade's, Fletcher, and he will sell it to you without hesitation, because London's economy doesn't run on coin, it runs on need, on desperation, on aches like yours. A carriage rumbles past, wheels grinding against the stones. A man leans out the window, shouting something to a woman who laughs but doesn't slow her step. A constable strolls down the lane, eyes skimming over the alleys but never truly seeing. He walks right past a man slumped against a wall, bottle dangling from slack fingers. This place is full of people drowning, full of people clawing for breath, and yet the city always looks away. You close the curtains slowly, letting the room dim again. The candle flickers one final time, then dies, with a soft sigh of smoke. Darkness folds around you, comforting in its own strange way. You lie back on the bed, the distant noise of the street seeping through the walls, muffled, muted, like a lullaby sung out of tune. The city's hunger matches your own. It takes, and takes, and takes, offering relief only when it knows you'll come back for more. You stare into the dark, listening to London breathe. Here, in this place, addiction is never an accident. It is a business, a culture, a citywide heartbeat, steady, relentless, inescapable. And you, like thousands of others, have already fallen into rhythm with it. When morning comes again, it does not arrive gently. There is no soft light creeping through the curtains, no warm hush settling over the boards. Instead, the room wakes in a heavy, suffocating stillness. The fog outside has thickened overnight, pressing itself against the window pane until even the faintest outline of the street disappears. It feels as though London has crept inside while you slept, bringing its damp breath, its chill, its shadows, its silence. You sit up slowly, the blanket clinging to your legs, and for a moment you don't know where your body ends and the air begins. Everything feels soaked, blurred, weightless. It is the fog that reaches you first, not the ache. Not yet. A low, whispering haze that fills the room from the edges inward, softening the furniture into shapes that shift with every blink. You rub your eyes, but the haze remains, clinging to your vision like a thin film. The candle on the table is a smudge of color. The chair by the wall looks like a shadow wearing a coat. The mirror reflects nothing but a distorted version of itself. You close your eyes again, hoping the world will steady. It doesn't. Your breath sounds unnaturally loud, echoing in the quiet. When you inhale, The air tastes strange, stale, metallic, touched by the lingering scent of yesterday's laudanum. You swallow, throat dry, and the ache stirs faintly, as though waking beside you. It starts as a dull pressure behind your sternum, pulsing lightly in rhythm with your heartbeat. You shift your weight, sit straighter, try to stretch your arms to loosen the stiffness from your joints, but the movement only sharpens the pulse. You stand, unsteady, letting your feet seek the warmth of the floor. The boards feel colder than usual, as if the fog has seeped through them during the night. You take a few steps toward the window, each footfall muffled, swallowed by the room. When you place your palm against the glass, it is slick with condensation. Tiny droplets slide down in uneven paths, carving faint trails through the fog's breath. Beyond the pane is nothing, no outline of chimneys, no faint shapes of passing carts, not even the glow of a gas lamp, just a blank whiteness where the world should be. You whisper something, maybe a word, maybe a sound, but the room absorbs it immediately. The silence in here is thick enough to swallow anything. You step back from the window, heartbeat picking up. The fog in the room feels alive now, shifting in ways the air shouldn't shift, curling around your ankles, sliding along the edges of the table, rising. Then the ache hits. A sharp, unexpected stab beneath the ribs sends you doubling over, one hand gripping the back of the chair for support. It's too soon, much too soon. You squeeze your eyes shut, pressing your free hand against your chest as if you could hold the pain still long enough to breathe through it. But it only grows slowly at first, then faster, like something stretching its limbs after a long sleep. Your pulse hammers in your ears, the room tilts, the fog thickens around your face. You know what this is. You know what comes next. Your gaze snaps to the bedside table before you can stop yourself. The bottle sits there, faintly visible through the haze, its glass catching what little light remains in the room. It looks distant despite being only a few steps away. Distant, but inevitable. Your hands shake as the pain coils deeper. You try to stand upright, but your knees buckle and you fall back onto the edge of the bed. The fog curls higher, brushing your cheek like a cold hand. You reach out blindly, fingers trembling, searching for the table, the bottle, anything to anchor you. Your fingertips knock against wood, then glass. Relief and shame arrive together. You pull the bottle into your lap and stare at it, breathing hard. The ache writhes beneath your ribs, threatening to surge again. The fog presses closer, the room spinning faintly around its edges. You uncork the bottle. The scent rises warm, sweet, poisonous, comforting. The fog inside your mind rushes forward to meet it, and the room, silent witness to your decline, waits for the next moment you try to fight and fail again. You try to rise early, though early has begun to lose its meaning. Time slips strangely when the nights are blurred by laudanum and the mornings are carved from pain. Still, you attempt to gather yourself, wash your face, straighten your collar, comb your hair into some shape that resembles the person you once were. You move slowly, stiffly, as though wading through the fog that still lingers in your room. Your body feels hollowed out, your limbs too light, your breath too shallow. The ache behind your ribs has quieted to a low, steady throb, but you know better than to trust it for long. There is an appointment today, one you promised yourself you would keep. Some small, foolish hope insisted you must go, something about proving you still have control, proving you are still reliable, still capable of ordinary things. You tell yourself this as you button your shirt, though. Even now your fingers tremble. You tell yourself this as you tie your shoes, though your vision wavers faintly at the edges. You tell yourself this as you step out onto the landing and begin descending the narrow staircase, gripping the rail each time your balance falters. The air outside is sharper than you expect. The fog has thinned, replaced by a cold that slices straight through your coat. You tighten it around your body, shoulders hunching against the wind. The street feels foreign again, as though every face, every doorway, every turning has been rebuilt in the night while you slept. You walk quickly at first, determined, the memory of your appointment pulling you forward like a thread. But it takes only a block, maybe two, before the ache resurges. Not harshly, not suddenly. It returns like something patient, sliding beneath your ribs with a familiar, poisonous intimacy. You slow your steps, your breath shortens, your hands begin to quiver again. You try to ignore it, pushing your pace faster, but the ache sharpens in protest. A bead of sweat prickles your brow despite the cold. Your mind tries to reason with your body. Just a few more minutes. You whisper internally. Just reach the corner. Just get through this. Just hold it together a little longer. But your body no longer listens to reason. The dizziness comes next, soft at first, like the floor gently tilting, then harsher, as though the cobblestones beneath your feet have begun to shift. You pause, one hand braced against the wall of a butcher's shop. A woman passes by, glancing at you briefly before continuing on, her footsteps fading quickly. The world wavers again. You blink hard, gripping the rough brick to stay upright. Your appointment is slipping from you, becoming distant, unimportant, overshadowed by the rising panic in your chest. You attempt to straighten. You take one step, then another. But each step is worse than the last. The ache blossoms sharply, sinking its claws deeper. Your hands tremble uncontrollably. You feel your breath breaking apart, becoming thin, fast, desperate. You know what is happening. You've felt this spiral before. You know exactly what will stop it. Your fingers drift toward your coat pocket, almost without your permission. You close your hand around the bottle inside, its shape instantly recognizable, its presence both a comfort and a condemnation. You stand there for a long moment, gripping it tightly, breath shuddering through your teeth. Your appointment time passes. You do not move toward it. You do not force yourself forward. You do not try to salvage the day. Instead, you turn around. The walk back feels longer, colder, heavier. Each step is a surrender. Each breath is a confession. By the time you reach your door again, the ache has grown unbearable, and your resolve has shattered. Inside your room, the silence greets you like an accomplice. You uncork the bottle. You bring it to your lips, and whatever promise you made to yourself about control dissolves the moment the sweetness touches your tongue. You wake again before noon, though wake hardly feels like the right word. It's more like surfacing slowly, painfully through layers of thickened darkness. The room around you is blurred at first, its corners melting together as though dipped in water. You blink, once, twice, until the shapes sharpen into place. The table, the chair, the rumpled blanket tangled around your legs, and the wallpaper faded green with pale curling flowers looming over you with its strange, watchful stillness. You lie there for a moment, staring at it. The pattern has grown familiar over the months you've spent in this room, familiar enough that you sometimes forget it's even there. But today, your mind feels unsettled, half wired from the dose, half fogged from the sleep. Today, the wallpaper feels alive. You push yourself upright slowly, muscles trembling from effort. The ache under your ribs murmurs faintly, not urgent, not yet, but present enough to remind you it hasn't gone far. You rub your eyes and glance again at the wallpaper. The flowers curve upward into spirals that look sharper than before, the vines twisting across the wall like tiny fingers reaching. You tell yourself it's only the light, only the angle, only your tired brain misfiring. But the thought doesn't settle, not today. You stand, stretching stiff limbs, and step toward the wall as though drawn by an invisible thread. The floor creaks beneath you. The air feels colder near the wallpaper, or maybe that's only your imagination turning shadows into something more tangible. You raise a hand, fingertips hovering just above the faded green surface. The pattern swims slightly, shifting the way reflections do in disturbed water. A pulse of unease moves through you. You press your hand against the wall. The wallpaper is cool, dry, utterly still, but your vision betrays you. The spirals seem to curl tighter. The pale flowers seem to tilt their heads. A faint ripple passes through the vines, so quick you almost believe you imagined it. You blink again, and the pattern returns to motionlessness. You're tired, you mutter to yourself. That's all, but the words feel fragile. You step back, heartbeat picking up. The room around you seems to shift in response. Small things, subtle changes. The chair in the corner feels closer than before. The blanket on the bed looks slightly disturbed. The air near the ceiling seems to thicken. You swallow hard, trying to steady yourself, but the unease lingers like a second heartbeat. You turn away from the wall and move toward the window, needing space, needing air. The fog outside is still heavy, pressing against the glass like a ghostly hand. Shapes drift by, maybe people, maybe carts, but they vanish quickly into the mist. You rest your forehead against the window pane, the cold shock grounding you momentarily. But behind you, the wallpaper waits. You turn back slowly, breath catching. The pattern has not changed. It remains as it always has faded, worn, peeling slightly at the edges. Yet something in your mind insists it watches, that the curve of each spiral follows your movements, that the flowers tilt toward the sound of your breathing, that the vines stretch a fraction further each time you look away. Your hands shake, the ache beneath your ribs sharpens. Your thoughts crawl toward the bottle on the table. You try to resist. You step backward, forcing yourself to look away from the walls, forcing yourself to focus on the weight of your breath, the feel of the floor beneath your feet. But the panic claws up your throat. You feel the room tightening around you, the shadows leaning in, and the wallpaper, quiet, patient, unblinking, seems to lean in too. You reach for the bottle, not because the ache demands it, but because the fear does. The cork comes free. The sweetness rises. The room quiets. The wallpaper softens, and for now, just for now, the walls stop watching. The rain begins sometime in the late afternoon, though at first you can't tell whether it's real or only the dull static that fills your ears when your body starts to slip into its familiar decline. A soft pattering rises against the window, gentle at first, timid, like fingertips tapping lightly on glass. You lie on the bed with your eyes half closed, listening as the rhythm deepens. Within minutes, the sound grows heavier, steadier, until it becomes the kind of rain London is known for. Relentless, cold, unbroken. You drag yourself upright, the blanket slipping from your shoulders. The ache beneath your ribs has been growing for the past hour, blooming slowly like a bruise you can feel forming beneath the skin. Your hands shake as you brace them against the mattress. The room is dim, the grayness outside draining the last remnants of color from everything inside. Even the wallpaper, your uneasy companion, seems washed clean of its greens and yellows, reduced to a flat, lifeless pattern. You stand, swaying slightly, and move toward the window. The glass is slick with rivulets of water, each drop carving a path downward before merging into the next. Beyond, the pane, Greyfriars Lane, has dissolved into a wet blur. The cobblestones glisten like oil. The puddles are dark enough to look bottomless. Figures pass only as silhouettes, umbrellas bent against the wind, coats pulled tight, heads bowed as though bracing against a world that expects too much of them. You watch them for a long moment, forehead resting against the cold glass. Every movement seems slowed by the weight of the rain. Even the horses pulling carts along the road move with a weary reluctance, hooves splashing through water with dull, heavy thuds. A cartwheel gets stuck for a moment in a rut, jerking the driver forward. He curses loudly, the sound muffled almost instantly by the storm. No one turns to look. No one ever does. The ache pulses again, sharper this time. You hiss softly through your teeth, hand pressing instinctively to your side. You know this ache. You know its rhythm. It coils itself around your lungs, tightening whenever you pause long enough to feel it fully. You close your eyes, breathing slowly, but the breath catches halfway. Outside, the rain intensifies, drumming against the window in a frantic staccato. A memory surfaces, one you would rather forget. Another rainy afternoon, another walk down Greyfriars Lane, another moment your body betrayed you. You remember collapsing against a lamppost, chest on fire, breath refusing to come. A stranger stopped long enough to ask if you were ill. You nodded. He walked on. London has no time for the unwell, especially those who choose their illness. By the time you managed to stagger home, soaked and shivering, the panic had already taken root deep inside you. That was the day you took twice your usual dose. That was the day the sweetness began to feel more necessary than optional. Lightning flashes distantly, illuminating the lane for a single heartbeat, a bright, ghostly snapshot of umbrellas, muddy water, and faces too weary to look up. Thunder follows a moment later, low and rumbling, rolling across the rooftops like something ancient dragging itself awake. You step back from the window, the room spinning faintly. The ache sharpens, demanding attention. Your throat tightens. The trembling begins again in your fingers. You clench your hands, willing the shaking to stop. It doesn't. It never does. Your gaze drifts toward the table, toward the bottle, still half full, still waiting, still promising escape. You try to resist. You take one step away from it, then another. But the rain grows louder, harsher, echoing through the walls, until it sounds like 1,000 fingers tapping against every surface. The room feels smaller. The shadows stretch longer. The ache digs deeper. You close your eyes, trying to breathe through the storm inside your chest. You fail. Your hand reaches for the bottle automatically, desperation guiding your movements more than thought. The cork slips free with that soft, familiar sound. You lift it to your lips, sweetness rising to meet you, warm and heavy. Outside, the rain keeps falling on Greyfriars Lane, endless, indifferent, washing the city in grey until every figure looks like the same blurred silhouette. Inside, you drink. Inside, you collapse. Inside, the world quiets once more. And London, soaked and sleepless, carries on without noticing the small room where someone is slowly losing themselves drop by drop. The storm breaks sometime past midnight, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet cobblestone and soot. You drift in and out of sleep, the sweetness of the latest dose pulling you under in soft, heavy waves. When you surface again, the room feels muted, as though the world has wrapped itself in damp wool. You lie still for a moment, letting the fog in your head settle. The ache beneath your ribs is quiet, not gone, never gone, but lulled into temporary obedience. A knock breaks the silence, 3 soft taps. Hesitant, almost apologetic, you freeze. It takes a moment for the sound to register. No one knocks on your door anymore. Not the landlady, who has learned to listen for signs of life rather than ask for them. Not the neighbors, who keep their distance from the trembling figure on the stairs. Not the doctor, who has long stopped checking on you unless called. Your heart stumbles over a beat. You push yourself upright, rub your eyes, and wait, listening. Another knock, slightly louder this time, followed by a voice you haven't heard in months. "Are you awake?" Your breath catches. You know the voice too well. It carries the familiar lilt of someone who used to be much closer to you. Someone who once sat at your table, laughed in your kitchen, walked home with you in the rain. Someone who knew you before your world shrank to the size of this dim room and the bottle that rules it. You swallow hard, throat suddenly too dry. You stand slowly, the floor shifting beneath your feet as though unsure whether to support you. You move toward the door, each step cautious, unsteady. When you open it, a rush of cold air slips inside, and there he stands, coat dripping with rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes searching yours with a mixture of concern, relief, and something harder to name. God, he breathes. You look thinner. You force a smile. It's been a long week. He steps inside before you can protest, glancing around the room, the rumpled blankets, the half-burned candle, the bottles tucked too neatly in the two-posting corner. His gaze lingers a moment too long on the table, and you see understanding flicker through his expression. He says nothing about it. You are grateful for the silence. I came by earlier, he says, removing his wet gloves. You weren't home. You nod, knowing exactly why, knowing exactly where you were. I had an appointment, you murmur. With the doctor? You hesitate. That's answer enough. He sighs and sits in the chair by the wall, the one you rarely use because it reminds you too much of evenings spent talking with friends you no longer see. He studies you, quietly, taking in the dark circles beneath your eyes, the tremor in your hands, the half-buttoned shirt. You avoid his gaze, focusing instead on the small puddle forming beneath his boots. I've been worried, he says softly. You stopped coming around. No letters, no visits. People talk, you know. You force a laugh that sounds brittle in your own ears. People always talk. He leans forward, elbows on his knees. I'm not asking you to confess anything, I just miss you. And I want to know if you're all right. The truth sits heavy on your tongue, too heavy to speak. The ache beneath your ribs stirs as though sensing the tension, curling upward into your chest. You curl your fingers inward to hide the shaking, but he notices anyway, his brows knit together, worry sharpening into something closer to fear. You're not well, he whispers. Please, tell me you're getting help. You look away. At the wallpaper, at the dim window, anywhere but at him. I'm managing. You lie. Some days are worse than others. He studies you for a long moment, then stands slowly. You don't have to do this alone. Let me help. Whatever this is, whatever you're fighting, it's nothing. You interrupt too quickly. Truly, but he's already seen the bottle on the table, already pieced together the nights you didn't come home, already understood the kind of fight you're losing. When he finally moves toward the door, he pauses, hand resting on the frame. Rain drums softly against the window pane behind you. The room smells faintly of opium and wilted resolve. I'll come back tomorrow, he says gently, even if you don't want me to. You nod, unable to meet his eyes. He leaves. The door closes. The silence that follows feels colder than any storm. Your breath shakes, your hands tremble, and in the echo of his footsteps fading down the hall, the ache beneath your ribs returns sharper than before, as if stung by the brief reminder of a life you can no longer reach. Your gaze drifts to the bottle. You reach for it, because comfort, no matter how poisonous, is easier than being seen. Morning comes with a violence you feel before your eyes even open. The sunlight is thin, watery, creeping around the edges of the curtains like something uncertain of its welcome. You lie still for a long time, wishing you could sink back into the cushion of sleep, into the warm, drifting haze, where pain loosens its grip and your thoughts soften into shapeless clouds. But the haze has burned off, the sweetness is gone, and the ache waits for you like a debt collector standing politely at the foot of your bed. You turn onto your side, breath catching as the first real pang ripples through. You sharp, twisting, unmistakable. Withdrawal announces itself quietly at first, like a whisper against your ribs. You inhale slowly, willing your muscles to stay still. The bottle sits on the table, dimly lit by the morning sun, its silhouette a familiar promise. But you don't move toward it, yet. Not because you don't want to God, you want to more than breathing, but because you told yourself last night that today would be different. Today you would try to go without, for an hour, maybe two, long enough to convince yourself you aren't completely lost. You sit up, head swimming. The room tilts slightly, then steadies. Sweat beads along your forehead despite the cold. You place your feet on the floor. The boards feel colder than usual. Or perhaps you're simply more sensitive to temperature today. You take a deep breath and stand, bracing yourself against the post of the bed as your knees wobble beneath you. Your body doesn't like what you're doing. It senses the absence already. It prepares its retaliation. You move to the wash basin, splashing cold water onto your face. The chill shocks your skin, sending a flare of clarity through your thoughts. For a moment, you almost feel capable. You picture yourself stepping outside, walking the street without the weight of the bottle in your pocket. You imagine your lungs drawing in air that isn't tainted by opium's memory. You imagine being someone else, someone not trembling, not aching, not hollow. But imagination is a fragile thing. 10 minutes pass. The ache spreads. Your hands begin to twitch. You try to distract yourself, pacing the room, straightening the blanket, scrubbing yesterday's cup, wiping the condensation from the window. Each task keeps you occupied for 20 seconds at most. Then the tremor starts. First in your fingertips, then in your wrists, then deeper, rattling the bones beneath your skin. Your breath becomes shallow again. You clench your jaw, forcing yourself to stand still, gripping the edge of the dresser until your knuckles blanch. Another wave hits stronger, colder. Your stomach twists. Your vision pulses. Your heart races too fast to be safe. You stumble to the chair and collapse into it, elbows on your knees, hands buried in your hair. You whisper to yourself nonsense words, broken pleadings, half prayers to a God you haven't spoken to in years. You rock forward slightly, the motion unconscious, instinctive. Anything to soothe the panic rising in your chest like floodwater. 15 minutes. That's how long you last before the first real surge of withdrawal claws down your spine. You lurch forward with a strangled gasp, one hand gripping your ribs, the other braced against the floor. Sweat pours from you. The tremors turn violent, your jaw rattling hard enough to hurt. A soft whimper escapes you, one you don't recognize as your own. You know then that you won't make it an hour. You won't make it another minute. Your gaze drifts weak, defeated to the table. The bottle glints faintly in the morning light. Still waiting, still promising. You drag yourself toward it, crawling the last step when your legs refuse to hold you. Your fingers close around the glass with the desperation of someone drowning pulling a rope. You fumble the cork with shaking hands. It pops free. The scent hits you warm, sweet, sinful, and relief crashes over you before the liquid even touches your tongue. You drink, not much, just enough. The trembling slows. Your pulse steadies. Your breath returns to your body, and the truth settles heavily in your chest. You didn't last a day without it. You didn't last an hour. You didn't last at all. You sit there on the floor, bottle still in hand, realizing that whatever piece of yourself you tried to salvage this morning has washed away in the tide before you even stood a chance to reach it. The afternoon light is fading by the time you step outside again, your coat wrapped tightly around your shoulders. The dose you took earlier still lingers faintly in your bloodstream, softening the edges, quieting the panic, but leaving behind a hollow, fragile exhaustion. You walk because you can't bear to stay inside any longer. The room felt too cramped, too watchful, too full of the ghosts of your own failures. Out here, at least the air moves, even if it carries the sour smell of rain-soaked alleyways and coal smoke. Greyfriars Lane spills you out into a busier stretch of the city. The sky above is streaked with bruised purple, the last hints of daylight smothered beneath low clouds. Lamps flicker to life along the street, their halos trembling in the damp London air. People hurry past, collars turned up, boots splashing through shallow puddles, murmuring to themselves, as though trying to outrun their own thoughts. You keep your head down and let the crowd pull you along. It's only when you reach the old stone archway near the market that you hear it. A violin, faint at first, then fuller, a thin ribbon of melody weaving through the noise of the street. Notes rise and fall softly, gentle, melancholic, tugging at something deep inside your chest. You stop walking without realizing it. The music feels out of place here, among the shouts of vendors and the clatter of wheels. It feels too tender for a city that knows only hard edges. Curiosity, or maybe the lingering haze, draws you toward the sound. Under the arch, illuminated by the weak glow of a single gas lamp, stands a young street performer. His coat is patched, his boots worn through at the toe, but his posture is proud, and his bow glides across the strings with effortless grace. The melody swells, filling the small space beneath the arch, turning the dripping stone walls into something almost cathedral-like. A few people pause to listen, others walk past without glancing up. You stand at the edge of the small crowd, breath held, letting the music unravel the tension still, coiled in your muscles. The violin's voice is clear and fragile, like something made of glass, each note trembling as though afraid to fall. The performer's eyes are closed, his face softened in concentration. The bow moves like a whisper through fog, and then, strangely, the ache beneath your ribs stirs. Not the sharp, punishing ache of withdrawal. Something else, something quieter, something like longing. The melody reminds you of a time before bottles, before trembling hands, before mornings that began with panic, before your world shrank to a single room and the weight of your own breath. You remember evenings spent in warm kitchens, laughter echoing off the walls. You remember friends whose faces you haven't seen in months. You remember yourself, not this version of you, but the person you used to be. The violin swells again, and your eyes sting unexpectedly. You take a slow breath, pressing a hand to your rib cage, as if trying to hold something inside. The sweetness of your earlier dose has nearly faded now. The world feels sharper again, the colors more brittle, the sounds more piercing. The music seems to reach into you, pulling at the frayed edges of everything you've tried to numb. A soft cough escapes you, then a tremor in your fingers, then a faint tightening in your chest. You curse under your breath, not yet, not here, not now. You force yourself to steady your hands, to breathe slowly, to focus on the music. But the ache rises like a tide, slow and merciless. Your body begins to signal its need with that terrible familiarity. You look toward the performer again. He opens his eyes, just for a moment, and somehow, impossibly, his gaze meets yours. There is no judgment in his eyes, only recognition, as though he sees something fragile in you, as though he knows. The music softens, slipping into a quieter, slower passage. The melody feels like a lullaby, soothing but unbearably sad. It settles over you like a blanket, warm and suffocating at the same time. But the ache grows stronger. Your breath falters, your hands tremble. The music blurs at the edges of your hearing. You reach for your coat pocket almost without thinking. Your fingers brush against the bottle. Shame flares bright, brief, but the need is louder. You back away from the arch, from the soft glow of the lamp, from the gentle music that threatens to crack you open. You turn down the nearest side street, heart pounding, breath shaking. Behind you, the violin continues its quiet lullaby, but its comfort cannot reach you. Not through the ache, not through the need, not through the life you've fallen into. One trembling step at a time. The next morning comes slowly, dragging its grey light through the window as though reluctant to touch the room. You lie awake before dawn, staring at the uneven cracks along the ceiling, feeling the familiar throb beneath your ribs building with each passing minute. You don't need to move to know what your body is preparing for. The ache pulses like a warning drum, steady, deliberate, impossible to ignore. You close your eyes, wishing futilely for strength, but strength, like everything else, has grown thin. By the time you force yourself out of bed, your legs feel weak. A tremor ripples through your fingers as you splash cold water on your face. Your reflection in the cracked mirror stares back at you, eyes sunken, skin pale, lips pressed into a tight, trembling line. You try to stand straight, but your shoulders slump forward under a weight you can no longer pretend isn't real. You need the doctor not for cures, not for comfort, but for access. You need another prescription. You need more, sooner than expected, and you hate yourself for knowing that. The walk to the surgery feels longer than usual. Each step seems to stretch, the street bending away just as you reach it. The fog has returned, heavier today, crawling along the ground in thick tendrils. By the time you reach the familiar brick building, sweat beads at your temples, despite the cold. Inside, the air smells of disinfectant and damp wool. A few patients sit hunched in the waiting chairs, coughing softly into handkerchiefs. You lower yourself into a seat, trying to steady your breath. The pain rolls through your chest again. You clench your jaw to keep from crying out. When the doctor calls you in, you rise too quickly, stumbling slightly. His eyes flick toward your unsteady movement, and something shifts in his expression, not curiosity, but concern. Real concern. You haven't seen that on his face in months. Sit, he says quietly. You sink into the chair, feeling small beneath his gaze. He studies you for a long moment before speaking, not as a physician, taking notes, but as a man trying to understand the wreckage in front of him. You've been here too often, he begins. Far too often. Your pulse quickens. You open your mouth to respond, but no words come. He doesn't need them. He sees the tremor in your hands, the pallor of your skin, the way you're breathing too shallowly, trying to ease the ache without drawing attention to it. Laudanum is not helping you anymore, he says gently. It's harming you. A spike of panic shoots through you. Your throat tightens. I only take what you prescribe, you lie. He doesn't argue. He doesn't need to. The truth hangs thick in the air between you, heavy, undeniable. You're dependent, he says softly, and it's getting worse. You look away, eyes burning. You hear the scratch of his quill, but he isn't writing. It's a nervous sound, a hesitant one. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, almost pleading. You need to reduce your use. Immediately. I won't cut you off all at once, that would be cruel, dangerous. But I cannot, I will not keep feeding this pattern. Fear crawls into your chest, sharp and cold. You grip the sides of the chair to steady yourself. I need it, you whisper, voice raw. You don't understand, I can't. I do understand, he interrupts, more firmly this time. More than you know. I've seen men like you, women too. Laudanum was meant to ease suffering, not become its source. Your breath shakes. The ache pulses again. The panic squeezes harder. He sighs, rubbing a hand over his tired face. I'll write one more prescription, he says, a smaller one. After that, we'll talk about reducing further. You nod automatically, though you barely hear the words. Your lungs are tight. Your vision flickers at the edges. You feel the tremor building again in your hands, stronger than before. He notices. He always notices. Please, he says softly. Let me help you before this becomes something you cannot return from. But his voice feels distant, muffled by the pounding in your ears. The ache roars. Your body screams its demand. When he hands you the slip, your fingers shake as you take it. His touch lingers, not accusatory, not cold, but sorrowful, as if he knows the paper he's giving you is not help, but a slow permission to continue falling. Take care, he murmurs again. You leave without responding. Outside, the fog closes in around you, heavy and cold. You clutch the prescription tightly, breath shaking, heart pounding. The ache pulses. The fear rises. The need grows. And for the first time, you realize the doctor wasn't warning you that the medicine might someday stop helping. He was warning you that it already has. You don't go home right away, not after leaving the surgery, with the doctor's warning echoing through your skull. His words cling to you like damp wool, heavy, suffocating, impossible to shake. You walk without direction, boots splashing through puddles, your breath sharp against the cold. The fog coils around your feet like a living thing, and for a brief moment you feel as though London itself is trying to swallow you whole. By the time you reach your building, dusk has already begun to settle. The stairwell smells of wet stone and stale tobacco. Your legs threaten to give as you climb, gripping the rail with trembling fingers. The ache under your ribs has sharpened again, thin at first, then twisting deeper. A steady, ravenous pulse that refuses to be ignored. You close the door behind you, leaning against it as though the wood is the only solid thing left in your world. Your breath comes in ragged pools. You pull the prescription slip from your pocket, staring at it with a numbness you can't quite describe. The doctor's voice returns in soft fragments. "I won't cut you off entirely, but this can't continue. You need to reduce. Before this destroys you." Your fingers crumple the paper before you even realize you're doing it. You sink onto the bed, elbows on your knees, head buried in your shaky hands. The ache grows more insistent. Your jaw clenches. Your breath trembles. You know what your body is asking for. You know what the bottle on the table would offer. But you also know it's almost empty. A cold sweat prickles across your skin. Panic claws its way up your throat. You stand abruptly, stumbling toward the table, shaking as you lift the bottle. You tilt it. A few drops slide along the glass. Not enough. Nowhere. Near enough. You swallow hard, heart pounding. You can already feel the future rushing toward you, hours from now, or minutes, when the ache becomes a roar and your body turns against itself. You close your eyes, your breath trembles, but then a flicker of memory, a hidden thought buried beneath weeks of fog, the floorboard. Your pulse spikes, a different kind of rush. You drop to your knees beside the bed, hands fumbling at the edge of the rug. You pull it back, revealing the wood beneath worn, uneven, familiar. Your fingers search the cracks until they find the loose plank, the one you pried up weeks ago in a moment of frantic foresight. You lift it. The hollow beneath yawns open, and there, wrapped in a scrap of cloth, lies another bottle. Your heart lurches in your chest, a wild, shameful relief that makes your knees buckle. You take it out slowly, reverently, as though unearthing a sacred relic. The glass is cool against your palms. The weight is unmistakable. Full, you sit back on your heels, staring at it with a mixture of gratitude and despair. You shouldn't have hidden it. You know that now. You shouldn't have planned for your own downfall. But in that moment weeks ago, when the fear of running out became too large to bear, your future self did what your present self now leans on. Your hands tremble as you uncork it. The scent rushes out, warm, sweet, familiar, terrible. You hesitate, just for a second, just long enough to hear the doctor's voice again, just long enough to feel the shame tighten in your chest. But the ache surges again, vicious and deep. The hesitation breaks. You drink. The warmth spreads through you instantly, dissolving the panic, numbing the fear, smoothing the jagged edges of your thoughts. You sink back onto the bed, clutching the bottle to your chest, letting the fog gather in your mind. Soft and heavy, the floorboard lies open beside you, the hollow beneath exposed like a wound. You know you should close it. You know you should cover your tracks. You know you should feel something: guilt, disgust, resolve. But instead, you lie there in the dimness, breath slowing, vision softening, heartbeat settling into a quiet rhythm. And as the sweetness washes over you, one truth settles deeper than all the rest. You did not find the hidden bottle. You left it for yourself, because on some level, you always knew you would need it. The sweetness carries you only so far. At first, it spreads gently, softening the ache, loosening the tight coils of panic. Your breath evens out. Your limbs stop shaking. For a fleeting moment, you feel anchored again, as though the world has paused long enough for you to gather yourself. You sink into the thin mattress, eyes drifting closed, the bottle resting loosely in your hand. The room blurs into darkness, warm and heavy, pulling you downward. But laudanum sleep is not real sleep, and tonight it shows its truest teeth. The descent comes subtly at first, a heaviness behind your eyelids, a slow melting of conscious thought. You drift between waking and dreaming, caught in that soft place where the body lets go, but the mind does not understand how to follow. Your breath slows, deepens, the room fades, your limbs grow distant. You sink deeper, deeper, until the darkness feels almost comforting. Then the dream sharpens. You find yourself standing on Greyfriars Lane, but it is not the lane you know. The fog is thicker, coiling in unnatural spirals along the ground. The gas lamps are dim, their flames shrinking as though starved of air. The buildings lean inward, their crooked rooftops stretching toward you as if listening. Something skitters across the cobblestones too fast to see clearly. You try to breathe, but the air is thick, syrupy, heavy with a sickly sweetness that turns your stomach. You take a step. The street shifts beneath your feet. Another step. The fog parts just enough to show a shadow slipping between doorways. Human? Animal? Your mind twists, unable to decide. A faint whisper rides the fog, curling around your ears. You can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable, pleading, broken, desperate. You back away, heart hammering, but the lane stretches with you, lengthening impossibly. No matter how many steps you take, the end of the street slips further from reach. You blink and suddenly you're somewhere else. Your room. But it is wrong. The wallpaper curls in impossible directions. The flowers bloom and wither in seconds. The vines pulse like veins beneath skin. The candle on the table flares unnaturally bright, its flame stretching upward like a reaching hand. The chair in the corner creaks on its own, rocking slightly as though someone has just stood up from it. You turn to the bed, your bed, and see yourself lying there, eyes sunken, lips grey, hands twisted in the sheets. You gasp. Your double does not. Its eyes open slowly, too slowly. Black pupils widen until they swallow the entire iris, swallowing all the color, swallowing the light. Its mouth moves, forming your name in a voice that does not belong to either of you. Then the double sits upright, bone by bone, slow, deliberate, grinning. You try to scream, but your throat locks. Your feet will not move. The room seems to tilt, the walls bending inward like ribs collapsing. The vines on the wallpaper slither toward the bed, wrapping around the double's arms, its neck, lifting it off the mattress as though presenting it to you. The bottle appears in its hand, your bottle glimmering with amber light. The double lifts it to its lips, eyes locked on yours, and then suddenly you are the one drinking. Your throat burns, your chest tightens, your pulse stutters, your vision fractures. You fall backward into darkness, and the dream shatters. You jolt awake, gasping, clawing at the blankets. Sweat drenches your skin. Your heart thrashes wildly against your ribs. The room is dark, real dark, silent, except for your ragged breathing. You reach for the bedside table with shaking hands, desperate to ground yourself in something solid. Your fingers brush glass. The bottle, still there, still full enough, still waiting. Your breath trembles. A sob threatens to break loose. The dream lingers like a stain behind your eyes. You clutch the bottle to your chest, not in defiance, not in desire, but in terror of what the night will bring if you sleep without it. And as the ache beneath your ribs returns slow, steady, merciless, you understand the truth. The nightmares are not the side effect. They are the warning, the signal, the price. And yet, trembling in the dimness, you take another sip. Morning creeps into the room like a reluctant intruder, slipping around the edges of the curtains in thin, colorless ribbons. You open your eyes slowly, feeling the heaviness in your skull before anything else, the dense, underwater pressure that laudanum sleep leaves behind. For a moment you remain still, unsure whether you are awake or still trapped inside the dream's claws. The air feels thick, your heartbeat drags, and when you finally sit up, the world tilts sharply to the left, as though the entire room has shifted on its axis. You grip the mattress, knuckles whitening. The floor seems to slide beneath you, dipping in a slow, rolling motion that makes your stomach lurch. You squeeze your eyes shut, waiting for the sensation to pass. It doesn't. Not fully. You open your eyes again and the wardrobe leans slightly to one side. You blink. It straightens. Or did it? Your breath tightens in your chest as you try to steady your focus. The table blurs at the edges, stretching and shrinking with each of your slow, uneven heartbeats. The chair beside it wavers, as though caught in a heat haze that shouldn't exist in a cold room. You reach out a shaking hand toward the wall, bracing yourself as the floor ripples faintly beneath your bare feet. This has happened before, moments of disorientation, fleeting shifts in balance, but never like this, never so vivid, never so relentless. The ache beneath your ribs begins its slow ascent, tightening with each breath. Not the stabbing spike of sudden withdrawal, but the dull, suffocating pull of a body begging for relief. You try to breathe steadily, counting your inhales, grounding yourself against the wall's solid surface. But the wall feels unsteady too, subtly flexing beneath your touch, as if the room is breathing with you. You swallow hard. You know what your body wants. You know what the bottle promises. But the nightmares from the previous night linger behind your eyes like soot that refuses to wash away. The double's face, the shifting street, the wallpaper that moved. Some part of you, small but still alive, fears what will happen if you take more, fears what the dreams will become next. Yet the room tilts again, sharper this time, sending a jolt through your spine. You stumble forward, catching yourself on the table. The bottle rattles softly where it sits, the faintest clink of glass against wood. It feels like the room is nudging you toward it, guiding your trembling body with cruel intuition. You grit your teeth and push yourself upright. Not yet. You refuse to surrender this early in the day. You shuffle toward the window, each step unsteady, as though navigating a ship's swaying deck. When you draw back the curtain, the city outside wavers, chimneys bending, rooftops sagging, the street shifting like water disturbed by wind. You blink hard, trying to realign the world, but the movement continues faintly, a surreal dance that tightens fear into your throat. A carriage passes below, wheels sloshing through puddles, but the sound arrives late, half a second after the image, as though reality and perception have fallen out of step. You close the curtain quickly. The room tilts again, harder. Your knees buckle. You grip the windowsill, breath shaking, vision swimming in frantic waves of grey and black. Your heart thunders unevenly. The ache beneath your ribs flares into sharp, gnawing pulses. Every muscle trembles, every nerve feels stretched to breaking. You stagger back toward the center of the room. The walls bow, inward, then out again. The floor rises in a slow swell, then dips like a receding tide. You can't tell what's real anymore, can't tell if the room is moving or if your body is betraying you again. You collapse onto the bed, chest heaving, hands shaking uncontrollably. You curl forward, head in your arms, trying to breathe through the vertigo. But the motion inside your skull grows stronger, and panic surges like a cold, crushing wave. The bottle sits within reach, silent, still, the only thing in the room that isn't tilting. You reach for it blindly, fingers brushing the familiar glass. You hesitate, just a heartbeat remembering the nightmares. Then another pulse of pain tears through you. Your vision fractures, your breath falters, your resistance crumbles. You pull the bottle close. You uncork it with shaking hands. You drink, and slowly, terribly, the room begins to right itself. But the fear remains, lingering in the shadows. If the room tilts this much without laudanum, what will the world become when even the bottle can't steady it anymore? The dose steadies you, but only enough to keep you upright. It does not bring the soft relief it once did, Not fully, not convincingly. Instead, it leaves you in a muted haze, hovering somewhere between exhaustion and dread. Your limbs feel heavy, your thoughts blurred, your breath uncertain. You lie on the bed for a long while, waiting for the world to settle into something recognizable. Eventually, the fog inside your mind thins enough for you to move. You sit up slowly, testing your balance, half afraid the room will tilt again. It doesn't. Not quite. It sways faintly, like a memory. You can't shake, but it does not buckle beneath you the way it did earlier. You take this small mercy and stand, gripping the edge of the table to steady yourself. And that's when you see her. Across the narrow street, in the building opposite yours, a small window glows faintly in the late afternoon light. The glass is warped, the frame uneven, yet the silhouette behind it is unmistakable. A girl, pale as milk, standing perfectly still. Her dress looks old-fashioned even by Victorian standards, a white shift that hangs loosely around her thin frame. Her hair is dark and long, draping over her shoulders like wilted silk. She is watching you. You blink, startled. Your breath hitches. You step closer to your own window, pressing your hands against the cold glass. The girl's face sharpens into view. Her features are delicate, almost ghost-like, softened by the distortion of the pain. She looks young, no older than 12, perhaps 13. Her eyes, large and dark, are fixed on yours, with an intensity that sends a shiver crawling up your spine. You don't move. She doesn't either. For a moment, the street between you feels unreal, silent, suspended, drained of life. No carriages pass, no footsteps echo. Even the air itself seems to hold its breath. You swallow hard and raise a hand hesitantly, a small, uncertain gesture meant to reassure yourself that she is real. She doesn't respond. Instead, she tilts her head very slightly to the side, just a few degrees, just enough to feel wrong, and continues to stare with an expression you cannot name. Not curiosity, not fear, not recognition, something colder, something hollow. You step away from the window, heart pounding. You rub your eyes, certain the laudanum has blurred your vision again. But when you look back, she is still there, still staring, still motionless. A knock sounds somewhere in the building, distant, muffled, real enough to break your focus for a heartbeat. You turn your head toward the hallway instinctively. When you look back toward the opposite window, she is gone. The curtain hangs still. The glass shows nothing but dim light. The room across the street looks empty. You exhale shakily, palms sweating, breath quickening. You tell yourself it must have been a trick of the light, or the aftertaste of nightmares still clinging to the edges of your mind, or a child glimpsed for only a moment before disappearing into the dimness of her home. But something deep inside you knows better, knows what you saw, knows who saw you. You step back from the window, pulse racing. The silence of the room settles heavier around you, pressing into your lungs. You pace slowly, nervously, each step creaking against the worn boards. Your hands tremble again, not from withdrawal, but from something colder. You draw the curtains shut, blocking out the view of the opposite building, blocking out the memory of her stillness. But long after the window is covered, long after the room grows dim again, long after you force yourself to lie down, you still feel the weight of her gaze, dark, unblinking, patient, waiting, and as sleep begins to drag you under once more, one final thought rises through your fogged mind like a whisper scraped along bone. You don't know whether she was real, but you know she will be there again. You try to ignore her. You tell yourself she wasn't real, that the laudanum carved her shape from fog and fear. But all through the night, every time you cracked open your eyes, a small part of you expected to see her silhouette pressed against your window, dark-haired, pale-faced, watching. By morning, your sleep is nothing but a chain of half-formed dreams and sudden jolts awake, each one leaving your heart pounding hard enough to hurt. When daylight finally drags itself across the room, you don't rise right away. Your limbs feel heavy, your breath shallow, your mind full of static. The ache beneath your ribs has returned slow and deliberate, growing sharper with each minute you spend lying still. You know what your body wants, you know the routine too well, but for once, you try to resist moving toward the bottle. You sit up carefully, one hand braced against the wall. The room tilts faintly, wavering as though viewed through rippling water. You wait for it to pass, swallowing against the nausea rising in your throat. Eventually, the world steadies only enough to function, not enough to trust. You stand, legs weak, and shuffle toward the wash basin. Your reflection startles you. Your face is hollow. Your eyes are ringed in grey. Your skin looks nearly translucent in the morning light. You splash cold water across your cheeks, hoping the shock will clear your head. It doesn't. It only sharpens the ache beneath your sternum, sending a tight pulse through your ribs. You should eat. You know you should. Your body hasn't had a proper meal in. You're not sure how long. Days blur now. Nights stretch. You can't tell one hunger from another. But this morning, something inside you whispers that if you don't eat soon, truly eat, your body might begin to fail in ways the bottle can't hide. You grab your coat and force yourself downstairs. The stairwell spins slightly as you descend, each step creaking under your unsteady weight. Outside, the air is biting cold, the sky a sheet of pale, unbroken grey. The street is quiet, save for a milk cart rattling down the lane and a few women sweeping their stoops. You walk toward the bakery on the corner, stomach twisting with hunger. The scent of bread, fresh, warm, comforting, reaches you before you even see the shop front. For a moment, your body responds. Your mouth waters, your knees almost buckle in relief. You step inside, but the warmth doesn't soothe you. It suffocates. The room feels too bright, too crowded, despite only 3 customers standing in line. The smell of bread, once inviting, overwhelms your senses. Your stomach lurches violently. The ache beneath your ribs tightens into something sharp, clawing upward as though punishing you for bringing it anywhere but home. You reach the counter, gripping its edge for support. The baker asks what you'd like. You try to speak. Your tongue feels thick. Your throat closes. Your vision pulses. The hunger is still. They're ferocious, desperate, but the need rising inside you is not for food. It is for the bottle. Your hands begin to shake again, worse than before. A thin sheen of sweat blooms across your forehead. You can't breathe properly. The world narrows to a small, trembling tunnel. You mumble, something an apology, maybe, and stumble out of the bakery before anyone can stop you. The cold air hits you like a slap. You double over, gagging, but nothing comes. Your stomach twists itself into knots, but still refuses to settle. You lean against the brick wall, shaking uncontrollably. People pass by, some glancing, most ignoring you. You can't blame them. You look like someone unraveling in real time, a spectre stumbling through the morning fog, too thin, too pale, too hollow to belong anywhere. The hunger fades, the nausea fades, only the ache remains. You force yourself, upright, and stagger home, steps uneven, breath ragged. By the time you reach your room, your hands are shaking so violently you nearly drop the key. You collapse onto the floor the moment the door closes behind you. The room swims. The ache becomes unbearable. Finally, inevitably, your gaze drifts to the bottle. You pick it up with both hands, as though it might slip away if you don't clutch it tightly enough. You don't bother with hesitation. You don't bother with guilt. You drink. Warmth spreads through your chest, smoothing the sharp edges. Your hands steady. Your breath slows. The nausea recedes. Your vision clears, and the awful truth settles like a stone in your stomach. You missed your meal today, not because you weren't hungry, but because the hunger that wins every single time is the one the bottle feeds. The dose steadies you enough to breathe, but not enough to truly stand. You sit on the floor for several minutes after drinking, letting the fog roll gently through your mind, smoothing the jagged edges of panic. The hunger in your stomach fades to nothing, the trembling quiets, the ache beneath. Your ribs loosens its grip, but something else settles in its place. A weight, a presence, a prickling sensation along the back of your neck. You tell yourself it's just the aftermath of nearly fainting in the street, just another symptom in the long list of things the laudanum has twisted inside you. But even as you stand slowly, carefully, the sensation stays with you, watching, waiting. You move toward the window, needing light, needing proof that the world outside still exists. You pull back the curtain. The opposite window is empty. No pale girl, no staring eyes. You exhale, shakily. One fear, at least, seems to have passed, but not the other. Not the sensation that something followed you home. The room feels heavier than usual as you cross it, your footfalls muffled by the worn boards. You slip off your coat, draping it over the chair. The shadows cast by the fading daylight cling stubbornly to the corners of the room. Even the bright glass in the window seems unable to reach them. You rub your arms, trying to shake the cold settling into your bones. Then your stomach twists, not from hunger this time, but from a strange dread that coils itself tightly in your gut. You need air. You need movement. You need to feel the world beneath your feet again. So you step into the hallway. The stairwell is dim, lit only by a small window on the landing where the sky bleeds a dull blue through thick clouds. The wood beneath your feet groans as you descend the first few steps. You grip the railing. The laudanum haze has softened your balance, and the air here smells faintly of old stone and damp plaster. You pause halfway down. Something feels wrong. The building is too quiet. Most tenants return by evening footsteps echoing on the stairs. Keys rattling in locks, muffled arguments drifting through thin walls. But now, the entire stairwell feels deserted, as though every sound has been swallowed whole. You take another step, then another. The silence presses closer, thick and suffocating. You glance down the stairs and freeze. A shadow moves. Not sharp, not clear, just the faintest ripple of darkness along the lower landing, a shape too distinct to be a trick of the light, yet too quick to fully understand. You hold your breath, body rigid. The railing bites into your palm. You wait, and the silence waits with you. The shadow does not return. Nothing moves, but your pulse is racing now, thundering painfully beneath your ribs. You take one more step down. The stairboard creaks, too loudly. Something shifts on the landing below, this time not a shadow, but a sound, a soft scrape, light, barely perceptible, as though someone dragged a foot just 1 inch across the floor. You retreat a step instinctively, heart pounding against your throat. You peer down the staircase, trying to make out shapes in the dimness. The landing looks empty, just the banister, the wall, and the worn runner rug curling at the continuous edges. But you know what you heard. You're certain you heard it. You take a shaky breath and call out, barely above a whisper. Hello? The silence that follows feels wrong, heavy, anticipating. You grip the railing tighter. Your breath trembles. Then a soft knock, not on a door, not from a neighbor, from somewhere below you on the stairs. 3 gentle taps, slow, measured, deliberate. You stagger backward, nearly stumbling, hands gripping the rail so tightly your fingers ache. Cold fear coils around your spine, dragging your breath into shallow bursts. You turn and hurry back up the stairs, climbing too fast. The world swaying around you, but you don't dare look back down. You reach your room, slam the door shut, and collapse against it, chest heaving. The room feels safer than the stairwell, but only barely. Hours pass before your breathing settles, even longer before your hands stop shaking. And somewhere in the hallway outside your door, somewhere deep in the dimness of the stairs, you know, something waits. Not hunger, not ache, not withdrawal, something else, something that found you on the landing, something that followed you home. The next morning arrives without warning, without sound, without the gentle slide from dream into waking. You jolt upright as though pulled from deep water, heart hammering, breath thin and frantic. The room is washed in a pale, sickly light, the kind that makes everything look unreal, your hands, the furniture, the floorboards beneath your feet. You blink rapidly, trying to anchor yourself, trying to piece together where you are and how you got here. For several long seconds, you can't. Your mind feels scraped clean, wiped of hours, maybe longer. There's a hollow space where memory should be, a wide, echoing emptiness that tightens your chest. You run a shaking hand through your hair, scanning the room for clues. The bottle lies on its side near the foot of the bed, uncapped, nearly empty. Your stomach drops. Your coat is on the floor, not draped neatly over the chair where you always place it. Your boots are by the window, not by the door. The curtains are half open, as if pulled back in a hurry, and the candle on the table, its wax fully melted, hardened into strange drips along the wood, suggests you stayed awake longer than you remember. You press your palms to your temples. Fragments begin to surface, not clear images, not full scenes, but sensations. Running up the stairs, breathless terror, something darker waiting on the landing, a scraping sound, a presence behind you. 3 soft taps. Your pulse spikes, and you stumble back onto the bed, breath quickening. You try to pull the pieces together, but they slip through your mind like drops of oil on water. There is something else. A face. A girl in a window. Dark hair. Unblinking eyes. You shake your head violently, as if the motion could scatter the images before they root themselves. But they linger anyway, clinging to the edges of your thoughts like damp cobwebs. You force yourself to stand. The room sways not violently, but enough to make you grab the bedpost for support. Your knees tremble. Your brain feels wrapped in cotton. You take a step forward, then another, trying to gather control of your body. But every movement feels unfamiliar, as though you're piloting something that isn't entirely your own. You move toward the window. Outside, the morning fog is thick again, swallowing the street in a pale shroud. No children run past. No vendors set up their stalls. The city feels suspended, holding its breath. You search for the opposite window, the one where you saw the pale girl, but the glass is dark, empty. A flicker of memory returns. You press a hand to your chest, feeling your heartbeat stumble, then steady. The shadow on the stairs, the scrape, the soft, deliberate knock. You step away from the window, suddenly unable to bear looking at the world beyond your room. You glance toward the door. It stands shut, but the air around it feels wrong, as if something pressed its weight against the wood during the night. You take a careful step closer. The floorboard creaks. You freeze. Silence. Nothing moves on the other side, but the dread settles deeper. You turn away again, retreating to the center of the room. Your attention falls to the bottle. You kneel, lifting it with trembling fingers. There is barely any left, just enough for one small dose. One last breath of relief. You hesitate, because beneath the hunger, beneath the ache, lives a deeper fear that whatever followed you last night, whatever took shape in the gaps your memory cannot fill, might not be something laudanum can silence. Yet you drink it anyway. A small dose, just enough to steady the trembling, just enough to settle your heart, just enough to dull the edges of fear. But as the fog wraps around your mind once more, one truth settles in your bones. You did not forget the night. The night took itself from you, and what waits in the missing hours is still somewhere near. On the stairs, behind the walls, or staring from a window you no longer dare to look at. By mid-afternoon, the last of the laudanum's comfort has thinned to almost nothing. Your breath grows shallow again. The ache beneath your ribs stirs like some creature waking after a long, angry sleep. You pace the room with slow, uneven steps, trying to pretend you aren't counting the seconds, trying to pretend the world isn't already slipping out of focus. The bottle on your table sits empty. The hollow beneath the floorboard is empty. Your prescription slip creased, damp with sweat, from being clutched too tightly is useless until morning, and night is coming. You rub your temples, trying to stay calm, but your body has begun its quiet revolt. The tremors return not violently yet, but sharp enough that you must grip the windowsill to steady your hands. Your breath hitches, then quickens, and every shadow in the room deepens in a way you do not trust. You know what must be done. You knew it the moment you emptied the last bottle. There is one place, one man left to turn to. The chemist 2 streets over. Not a licensed apothecary, not even a reputable one, but he sells what others won't, to those he doesn't ask too many questions about. You grab your coat with shaking fingers, pulling it over your shoulders. The door creaks as you open it, and for one brief, nauseating heartbeat, you expect to see someone waiting on the landing. The pale girl, the shadow, something, someone, but the stairs are empty, dim and still. You force yourself down them quickly, head lowered, breath unsteady. Outside, the fog curls like pale fingers around your legs. The street feels too quiet, too expectant, almost as if it recognizes your desperation. You walk faster. Greyfriars Lane gives way to narrower alleys, ones that smell of rotting vegetables and spilled gin. A beggar huddles against a wall, coughing into a ragged blanket. A woman stares at you with hollow eyes as you pass, her expression dull and sunken. Somewhere above, a window slams shut. You jump at the sound, heart leaping into your throat. The ache pulses harder. You turn down a narrow passage where the buildings lean so close they nearly touch. A single lantern flickers overhead, its flame struggling against the wet air. At the end of the alley, just beyond a crooked wooden door, sits the chemist's shop, or what passes for one. You knock once, softly, then twice, harder. After a moment, the door creaks open. A thin man peers out, eyes sharp, breath sour with the scent of cheap gin. His face is narrow, almost skeletal, and his fingers twitch as he studies you. "You're back sooner than expected," he mutters. "Ran through your supply that quickly?" You don't answer. You can't trust your voice. He snorts and steps aside, allowing you to enter. The shop is dimly lit by a single oil lamp, its flame casting warped shadows across jars and bottles of varying shapes. Some contain powders, some contain liquids the color of rust, some hold things that look like they should not be ingested by anyone still hoping to keep their body intact. "Sit," he says, rummaging through a drawer. You don't sit. You stand rigidly in the doorway, holding your coat tightly around yourself, as though it might keep your ribs from collapsing under the ache, spreading through them. "How much?" you whisper finally. He glances at you, reading the desperation in your trembling hands. The corner of his mouth twitches into something that is not quite a smile. "Double," he says flatly. "You're getting worse, and I'm taking more risk selling to old you." You swallow hard. You don't have enough coin. Not nearly. He sees the panic flicker across your face and waves a dismissive hand. "I said double. Didn't say you had to pay it now." Your breath stutters. A debt. You know what that means. People in this part of the city pay in many ways, but the ache twists sharply beneath your ribs, and your knees nearly buckle. You nod. He pulls out a small bottle smaller than the ones from the apothecary, darker, the glass thicker, the shape wrong. You take it with shaking hands. It is warm from his touch. Too warm. You be careful. "With that batch," he mutters, "stronger than the last." You've heard those words before from the apothecary who pitied you, from the doctor who warned you, from everyone who sees what you're becoming. But none of it matters when your body screams. You leave quickly, heart pounding, clutching the bottle so tightly your knuckles ache. The fog on the street feels thicker now, curling up your coat sleeves, brushing your neck. You don't wait until you're home. You duck into a narrow alcove between two buildings, uncork the bottle with shaking fingers, and take a small, desperate sip. The sweetness hits immediately warmer than usual, heavier, sliding down your throat like molten honey. You close your eyes. Relief sweeps through your chest. Your vision steadies. Your breath evens. Your hands stop trembling. But beneath the relief is something else, something sharp and unsettling, like the faint taste of metal beneath the sweetness. You open your eyes slowly. The fog around you has deepened. The shadows seem to lean closer, and a feeling you cannot name settles cold and heavy at the base of your spine. You walk home quickly, because even as the laudanum warms your veins, some part of you senses that what you drank tonight was not quite the same, not the same formula, not the same strength, not the same safety, and not the same mercy. The warmth from the black market bottle lasts barely an hour before something new begins to surface beneath it, something the usual laudanum glow cannot fully smother. At first it comes as a faint chill along your spine, like a draft slipping under a door. You pull your coat tighter around your rend shoulders, though the room is not cold. The candle burns steadily, the air is still, and yet a tremor moves through you, not the familiar trembling of withdrawal, but a deeper, more unsettling vibration, as though your bones themselves are humming. You sit on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe, slowly, evenly. The drug usually wraps you in a thick, warm fog, but this batch feels wild, restless, unpredictable. The edges of the room seem too sharp one moment, too soft the next, blurring and tightening in uneven pulses. Your fingers twitch against your knees. Your breath catches. A bead of sweat rolls down your temple, even though your skin prickles with cold. Then the shiver returns, swift and violent, jerking your shoulders forward. You gasp. Your teeth clatter together. You wrap your arms around yourself, rocking slightly. The tremor moves down your spine like a cold fingertip, tracing each vertebra. The warmth in your veins feels wrong now, too heavy, too thick, as though the drug is trying and failing to keep something at bay. You crawl beneath the blanket, shivering harder. The fabric offers no comfort. Your breath comes in short bursts. The candlelight flickers, strangely too quickly, too often, though no draught disturbs it. The shadows in the corners pulse faintly, expanding and contracting as though breathing. You shut your eyes, but the darkness behind your eyelids only makes it worse, because behind the darkness is a shape, a silhouette, tall, thin, leaning, not the girl, not the double, something else, something you don't recognize. You open your eyes quickly. The silhouette vanishes, leaving only the dim room and your own ragged breath. You pull the blanket tighter around yourself, curling inward like a frightened animal. The shiver racks your body again, a full-body spasm. Your muscles tighten painfully, and you bite down on your lip to stop yourself from crying out. Something is wrong, deeply wrong. You've taken too much, or the wrong thing, or both. Your breath grows uneven. The air feels thin, as though the room has shrunk around you. You try to stand, but your legs buckle, sending you crashing back onto the bed. The impact rattles the frame. The candle dances, struggling to stay lit. You lie there trembling, helpless, listening to the sound of your own heartbeat, too loud, too fast, too erratic. It thumps against your ribs like a fist trying to break through. You clutch your chest, fingers digging into your shirt, terrified that something inside you has begun to unravel. The walls shift again, not tilting this time, but pulsing, gently, rhythmically, in, out, in, out. You blink hard. Your breath stutters. The wallpaper's vines seem to curl toward you, inch by inch, like hands extending from the painted surface. You turn away, squeezing your eyes shut. The shiver returns longer now, deeper, crawling through your spine like ice water. Your jaw locks. Your fingers claw at the blanket. The bottle sits on the table across the room, faintly glowing in the candlelight. You know you shouldn't take more. You know it's dangerous. You know this batch is different, but the cold inside you is growing, spreading, claiming each breath, and fear, the old, familiar, fear tightens around your throat. You push yourself upright, shaking violently. Your legs barely support you as you stagger toward the table. Each step sends another shudder through your body. By the time you reach the bottle, tears blur your vision. Your hand closes around the glass. The cold vanishes instantly. Warmth blooms again. Relief crashes through you like a wave. You drink, not a sip this time, a desperate swallow. The warmth spreads. Your breath steadies. The shadows ease back. The pulse of the walls slows. You lean against the table, eyes closed, panting weakly. The shiver subsides, but it does not leave. It lurks quiet, patient, waiting beneath the surface, like something biding its time. And as you return to the bed, clutching the bottle like a talisman, one truth settles cold and unshakable into your bones. You are no longer fighting withdrawal alone. Something else has entered the room with you. And, whatever it is, the bottle feeds it too. You don't remember deciding to leave your room. One moment you were curled beneath the blanket, shivering despite the warmth that should have soothed you. The next, you found yourself standing by the door, coat in hand, boots half laced, the bottle tucked carefully into your pocket like a pulse you could not live without. Something inside you insisted you move, walk, breathe different air. Whether it was fear, instinct, or the drug twisting your impulses into strange shapes, you aren't sure. You only know that staying in that room felt dangerous. Staying meant confronting the shadows that pulsed beneath the wallpaper, the shapes behind your eyelids, the lingering sense that something waited just beyond sight. So you step outside. The air on Greyfriars Lane is colder than you expect, sharp enough to sting your skin, clearing the laudanum fog only slightly. The sky above is bruised with dusk, streaks of violet bleeding into the last traces of daylight. You pull your coat tight and begin walking, letting your feet guide you through familiar streets even as your mind drifts in uneasy currents. You head towards Smithfield. The market is quieter in the evening, but it never truly sleeps. You hear it before you see it, a murmur of voices, the clatter of wooden crates, the low groan of carts being pulled across stone. Smithfield is a place of noise and blood. Even after sundown, the air there tastes of iron and smoke, and something about that rawness feels grounding, real in a way your own mind no longer is. As you approach the open square, the world shifts again, not violently, but subtly, like a painting whose colors have begun to bleed. The cobblestones seem slicker than usual. The lamps burn too dimly, their flames shrinking into thin needles of yellow light. Figures move through the haze workers, butchers, porters, each one wrapped in shadows that cling too tightly to their ankles. You walk among them, though no one seems to notice you, or if they do, they avert their eyes quickly. Perhaps they see the tremor in your hands. Perhaps they sense the unsteadiness in your steps. Perhaps they smell the faint sweetness clinging to your coat. You stop near the edge of the market where a row of shuttered stalls casts long stripes of darkness across the stones. The shadows slip between your feet like water. You swallow hard, gripping the wooden railing beside you to steady your spinning vision. A butcher's cart creaks past. The driver nods at you once, curious, perhaps wary. Behind him, sides of beef swing from hooks, swaying gently with each bump of the wheels. The sight makes your stomach twist, not from hunger, but from the faint, rising nausea that has haunted you since the new bottle. You close your eyes, breathing shallowly. When you open them again, someone stands across the square. Not close, not near enough to see clearly, but there, a slim figure at the far end of Smithfield, half lit by a wavering lamp. Your heart stutters. It looks like a girl, small, still, pale. You blink, hard. The figure blurs. The lamplight flickers. But when your vision clears, she is still there, unmoving, watching. Your breath freezes in your chest. She tilts her head, The same slight angle, the same impossible, measured motion. Your legs nearly give out. The railing behind you becomes the only thing keeping you upright. You look away, desperate, but the crowd offers no comfort. Faces pass in streaks of motion, but no one stops, no one stands still, no one watches you the way she does. You force yourself to look again. The figure has moved, closer now, unmistakably closer. Your pulse roars in your ears. You stumble backward, nearly tripping over a crate. A porter mutters at you as he passes, brushing your shoulder hard enough to jolt awareness back into your limbs. You glance again, and she is gone, vanished into the fog as though she were nothing but breath on glass. You don't wait for her to return. You turn and walk fast, too fast away from Smithfield, away from the dim lamps and the shifting shadows, away from the spot where she stood. Your breath comes shallow and sharp, each inhale scraping your throat. You feel the bottle inside your pocket, warm from your body heat. You do not know if she is real. You do not know if she is Laudanum's creation. You do not know if she is something far worse. But as the market disappears behind you and the night thickens around your depths, one truth pulses in your chest with terrible clarity. No matter where you go, no matter how far you walk, the pale girl can find you. You do not sleep that night. Not truly. You drift, at best thin, uneasy stretches of half-consciousness, where the pale girl's silhouette flickers behind your eyelids like a lantern seen through fog. Every time you start to sink into deeper sleep, you jolt awake, pulse racing, convinced you hear footsteps outside your door, sometimes soft, sometimes hurried, sometimes stopping just on the other side of the wood. By dawn, you are shaking, and you know deep down that you cannot spend the day in that room. Your chest tightens as you pull on your coat, hands trembling as you button each clasp. You move like someone twice your age, bones aching, breath shallow, each step unsteady. The bottle sits on the table, its dark shape like an accusation. You lift it carefully, slipping it into your pocket, not because you want it, but because you fear what will happen if you don't have it. Outside, the cold cuts sharply across your face, filling your lungs with air that feels too thin. You lean against the building a moment, catching your balance, before starting down the lane. The city stirs awake around you, milk carts rattling, women sweeping stoops, horses stamping in the brittle cold. But you pass through it all like a ghost, barely noticing the shapes that move around you. You're heading somewhere you haven't gone in weeks, somewhere you promised yourself you'd return to when you felt stronger. Your friend's lodgings, the one who visited you just days ago, the one who saw the tremor in your hands, the one who promised to come back tomorrow. He never did. Your stomach twists with guilt or something close to it as you approach the familiar building. You climb the narrow steps, each one groaning under your weight. You raise your hand to knock, but the door opens before you touch it. His landlady stands in the frame, her sharp eyes narrowing as she recognizes you. "You're here for him?" she asks. You nod. Her mouth tightens in a thin, unpleasant line. "He's not in." Your heart sinks. "When will he be back?" She hesitates, glances down the hallway, then back at you. "He left early yesterday morning." You swallow. "Did he say where he was going?" She studies you a moment, the pallor of your skin, the tremor in your jaw, the way your shoulders slump as if held together by thread. "He didn't say much of anything," she replies. "Only that he had errands." Look troubled. She pauses, then adds, voice lowered, "He hasn't been himself since visiting someone." You look away, throat tight. She sighs. "If he comes back, I'll tell him you called." You nod, though your legs already feel weak. You descend the steps slowly, gripping the rail. When you reach the street, you pause, breath misting in the cold. "He didn't come back yesterday, or last night, and he always keeps his word. Always. Unless something unsettled him so deeply he couldn't return. Unless your decline frightened him more than he would ever admit. unless the look in your eyes reminded him of someone already too far gone. You sit on a nearby bench, ignoring how the cold seeps through your clothes. The ache beneath your ribs pulses, demanding attention. You breathe slowly, trying to quiet your thoughts, but the city around you feels too loud, too overwhelming, too watchful. A carriage rolls past. A child cries in the distance. A door slams somewhere behind you, and beneath it all a creeping dread whispers, maybe he's avoiding you, maybe he's given up. You pull the bottle from your pocket, thumb brushing the glass. You know you shouldn't not hear, not now, but loneliness is a hollow deeper than hunger, sharper than pain. And today, for the first time, you feel it fully, crushing, inescapable. You take a small sip, guilt burning your throat. The sweetness spreads, your hands steady. The noise of the street softens. You stare at the pavement, breath slow. In a city this vast, people disappear all the time. Some fade by choice, some fade by accident, some fade because the world grows tired of looking for them, and some fade because watching someone fall apart is too painful to bear. You think of your friend's face, worried, gentle, afraid. You think of his hand on your shoulder. You think of his promise, and the empty space he left behind. You close your eyes and let the fog rise again. He is gone, and you are more alone than ever. And as the dose settles into your bones, you understand this is how people slip through the city. Not all at once, but piece by piece, until no one remembers the sound of their footsteps or the warmth of their name. The walk back to your room is slow, so slow it feels as though the city itself resists your return. The cobblestones seem uneven beneath your boots. The sky hangs low, a heavy grey sheet pressing against the rooftops. A cold wind slips down the alleyways, curling around your ankles, threading beneath your coat. You keep your head bowed, one hand braced against the wall each time the world sways a little too sharply. By the time you reach your building, your breath has grown shallow again. Not from exertion, from something deeper, something you don't yet want to name. Inside the stairwell, the air feels wrong again, thick, stale, as though it's been held inside the walls too long. You climb each step carefully, gripping the rail to steady the tremors beginning in your hands. The strange cold from last night returns, sliding between your ribs like a thin blade. You swallow against it and keep climbing. When you reach your door, you stand still for several seconds, listening though you're not sure for what. A sound, a whisper, a presence, something, but the hallway is silent. You enter anyway. The room greets you with its usual dimness, its stale smell of old dust and fading dreams. You toss your coat onto the chair, missing the backrest, letting it slump onto the floor and sink onto the edge of the bed. Your pulse accelerates suddenly, then slows, then rushes again in a dizzying rhythm. You press a hand to your chest, trying to steady the wild thump beneath your palm. It doesn't steady. Instead, it falters. Just once at first, a sharp skip, like a stone thrown into a calm pond, then another and another. Your breath catches. A sharp pain spears through your ribs, radiating outward in cold tendrils. You bend forward instinctively, elbows on your knees, trying to draw in a steady breath. But the air refuses to fill your lungs fully. Each inhale feels thin, incomplete, trembling. You know what this is, or at least you suspect. Laudanum can soothe pain. Laudanum can numb fear. Laudanum can quiet thoughts, but it can also slow the heart, and the heart has limits. You try to stand, panic rising, but the moment you lift your weight from the bed, a fresh wave of dizziness crashes over you. The room swims. A cold sweat blooms across your forehead. Your knees buckle. You collapse back onto the mattress, breath rasping. Shallowly, your heart stutters again. A hollow thud, a silence, then a frantic, uneven pounding. You clutch your chest, Your fingers tremble violently. You fumble for the bottle on the table, not to take more, but simply to hold something steady. Your wrist knocks it over. It rolls across the past floorboards, spinning in uneven circles before coming to a stop near the wall. You stare at it, breath shaking. You try to call out, for the landlady, for a neighbor, for anyone. But your voice barely rises above a whisper. Your pulse thuds again, louder than the ticking clock. Your vision blurs at the edges. Black threads weave into the corners of your sight. You lie down slowly, because sitting upright feels impossible. The ceiling spins in wide, sweeping arcs. The cracks across the plaster swim like veins beneath skin. You grip the blankets weakly, trying to anchor yourself to the bed. Your heart skips again, harder this time. A sharp jolt moves through your chest, stealing your breath. Your fingers claw at your shirt as if you could shock your own body back into rhythm. But the rhythm falters, stumbles, pauses. Fear tightens around your throat. You whisper. Something, maybe a plea, maybe a prayer, maybe your friend's name, the one who has disappeared from your life without a trace. Then suddenly your heart lurches back into motion, pounding too fast, too hard, as though making up for every beat it lost. You gasp, sucking in air that feels thick and wet. Tears sting your eyes from the pain. Slowly, slowly, the rhythm steadies, not normal, not safe, but no longer slipping through your grasp. You lie there shaking, fingers pressed to your chest. Tonight, you understand something with terrible clarity. The bottle is not just stealing your sleep, not just taking your memories, not just twisting your mind into haunted shapes. It is beginning to take your heart, beat by beat, night by night, and one evening, sooner than you want to admit, it may not start again. You lie still long after your heartbeat steadies, afraid to move, afraid that any shift in position might send it spiraling again. The ceiling above you no longer spins, but the memory of its slow rotation lingers like aftershock. Your breath wavers. Your hands ache from clenching the blanket. A faint, metallic taste coats your tongue, not blood, not exactly, but something that feels too close. Eventually, you sit up, slowly, carefully, as though rising too quickly might undo whatever fragile balance your heart has reclaimed. Your gaze drifts toward the corner of the room where the bottle rolled earlier. It lies on its side, glinting faintly in the dim light. A single drop clings to the lip. One, just one. The rest is gone. A cold dread settles across your shoulders. You reach for it, crawling across the floor like someone searching for a lost lifeline. When you lift it, its weight confirms what you already know. It is empty, completely. You tip it upside down, desperate. A single drop slides down the glass and falls onto your knee. Then nothing. Your throat tightens. Shadows in the corners of the room seem to lean forward, watching, waiting to see what you will do. Without the substance that holds your world together, you try to breathe slowly, but panic coils tightly inside your ribs. You rise unsteadily to your feet and move around the room, checking every hiding place you've used before under the bed, behind the loose brick, beneath the floorboard you pried open days ago. Empty, empty, empty. Each discovery sharpens the panic. Your breath grows shallow again. This is the first time in months the room has held no supply. The first night you face the darkness without its warmth. The first time you must survive the ache completely bare. You sink onto the chair, pressing your palms against your eyes. For a moment, you try to think logically. The apothecary opens at dawn. The doctor might help. You just need to wait a few hours. Just a few. But your mind doesn't believe you. Your body doesn't believe you. The ache beneath your ribs pulses like a living thing, slow at first, then sharper, as though aware of the emptiness. You stand suddenly, pacing in uneven lines across the floor. Your breath comes too fast. Your fingers twitch uncontrollably. The walls feel too close. The window feels too far. Every shadow seems deeper than before. You pause by the window, forehead pressed against the cold glass. The street is nearly empty. Fog rolls in thick curls along the cobblestones. The lanterns cast halos of weak, trembling light. Then movement. On the opposite side of the street, a figure standing still, half hidden in the fog. You squint. Your pulse thunders. Your breath stutters. It's a girl, pale, thin, still, the same one from the window, the same one from Smithfield, the same impossible silhouette. She stares at your building, head tilted at that same unnatural angle. You stumble backward, knocking into the table, breath breaking into sharp, panicked bursts. When you look again, she's gone, vanished. The fog folds into itself, swallowing her shape. Your hands shake violently now. You stagger to the bed and collapse onto it, curling inward as the ache rises. The tremors intensify. Your skin prickles with cold. Your breath feels shallow, thin, as though it cannot reach the bottom of your lungs. You whisper to yourself nonsense words, frantic prayers, the doctor's warnings, your friend's voice, anything to hold on to. But the room closes in, the shadows deepen, the fear grows, heavier, the ache sharpens again, more feral, more demanding. You claw at the blankets, teeth chattering. You have survived withdrawal before, but never like this. Never without reserves. Never after your heart faltered. Never with a pale figure watching from the fog. Minutes pass, or hours. Time dissolves into shaking limbs and ragged breaths. You curl tighter, fingers digging into your arms, as the ache tears upward through your ribs like a splitting seam. Your body convulses once, twice, and a low, involuntary cry escapes your throat. The bottle lies on the floor, empty, useless. You reach for it anyway. Instinct, memory, desperation. Your fingers brush the cold glass, but there is nothing left to save you tonight. And as the tremors seize you once more, you understand the terrible truth. This is the night the bottle goes dry, and you must face what the laudanum once hid: the pain, the fear, the shadows, the girl, your heart, and whatever waits in the dark when the drug is gone. You do not remember when the shaking stopped, only that at some point in the night, after the convulsions, after the sweat chilled on your skin, after the visions blurred into darkness, you slipped into something that resembled sleep. Not real sleep, not rest, a collapse, a blackout, a surrender. You wake on the floor, your cheek pressed against the cold wood, your limbs twisted beneath you, your breath shallow, uneven, rasping. For a long moment, you don't move. You can't. Your bones feel too loose inside you, like poorly fitted joints rattling in an empty frame. When you finally manage to push yourself upright, a sharp bolt of pain shoots down your spine, and you gasp aloud. Your breath fogs in the thin morning light. The room swims slowly into focus, the candle burned out in the night, leaving wax melted in strange, spidery patterns across the table. Your coat lies, crumpled near the door. The bottle still rests where you dropped it, hollow, useless, mocking. Your stomach twists violently, not with hunger, with sickness. You swallow it back, gripping the edge of the bed to steady yourself. The boards beneath you creak, as though complaining at the weight of your trembling form. You try to stand. Your knees buckle immediately. You collapse back down, hitting the floor hard enough to knock the air from your lungs. You wheeze, curl inward, clutching your ribs as a fresh wave of pain ripples through you. The ache has changed. It is no longer a dull pressure beneath your sternum, no longer a slow, creeping tightness. It is sharp now, needle-like, burrowing deep, scraping bone, tugging at the edges of your heartbeat with cold fingers. You try to breathe through it. The breath shivers in your throat. You drag yourself upward again, first onto your knees, then onto unsteady feet. Every joint creaks. Every bone feels fragile. When you step toward the window, your legs shake as though the weight of your own body is too much to bear. The glass is fogged, But when you wipe it with the back of your sleeve, the street below emerges dim, grey, lifeless. No figures wander the lane this early. The lamps are still lit, their flames flickering weakly in the morning damp. You search instinctively for the opposite window. Empty. No pale girl. No watching eyes. Yet the absence does not comfort you. It tightens the dread in your chest. Because absence is not disappearance. Sometimes absence is waiting. You turn away from the window, pressing a hand to your ribs as another tremor runs through you. Your heart flutters too fast, then too slow, an unpredictable rhythm that steals your breath. You stagger toward the chair and collapse into it. Chest heaving. You need laudanum. Not want it. Need it. Your hands shake so violently you must grip your own wrists to still them. Every part of your body, from your jaw to your toes, vibrates with a low, feverish tremor. You feel hollow, weak, barely human, as though your bones themselves knock together with every heartbeat. You lean forward, placing your forehead in your palms. You will not last another hour like this. Your thoughts blur. The room dims. Somewhere between the trembling and the dizziness, you hear a faint sound, a tapping, light, delicate. You freeze. Tap, tap, tap. Your breath catches. You lift your head slowly, every muscle tense. The sound comes again, not from the window, not from the hallway, from the floorboards beneath you. Tap, tap, tap. You jerk backward, chair legs scraping loudly against the wood. The tapping stops. Silence swells around you, thick, cold, waiting. You stare at the floor as though expecting it to rise up or split apart. Nothing happens, but the dread does not leave. It settles deeper, into marrow, into breath. You force yourself up again, stumbling toward the table. Your hands tremble uncontrollably as you search the drawers for coins. You find a few, too few, but just enough. Maybe enough. You shove them into your coat pocket and pull the door open. You cannot survive another morning like this. You cannot endure the rattling bones, the scraping ache, the heart that falters and stutters with every beat. You descend the stairs carefully, gripping the railing. The shadows cling to the corners again, watching as you pass. You do not look at them. The cold air outside strikes your face sharply, but you welcome it, because anything is better than the room, where your bones rattle like loose pieces, in a body that no longer feels alive. You shouldn't be able to walk, not after the night you just survived, not after the tremors, the heart stumbles, the cold that crawled through your bones like a living thing. And yet you move. At first it's a shuffle, each step carved out of trembling muscle and sheer desperation. Morning air bites at your face, sharper than yesterday, sharper than any morning you can remember. But the cold is a mercy. It keeps you upright. It keeps your mind tethered to something beyond pain and fear. Your breath comes shallow, forming pale clouds that vanish as quickly as they appear. You grip the wall of your building, sliding along it until your legs remember how to hold you. The cobblestones blur, then refocus. Your hands are shaking so violently you have to shove them into your pockets to hide it. There's only one thought in your mind: get to the apothecary. Not the black market chemist. Not today. Not after what his bottle did to your heart. Not when the memory of that sharp, splitting pain still echoes in your ribs. You walk through Greyfriars Lane, your pace uneven, each step laced with dread. The buildings loom over you, tall and crooked, their windows staring down like half-closed eyes. The fog collects in the corners, pooling like water, rising in tendrils that reach toward your ankles. You keep your eyes low. You keep moving. Children run down the street ahead of you, two boys chasing each other, their laughter sharp and bright. But when they pass you, their joy falters. One stares openly at your shaking limbs. The other tugs his friend's arm, whispering something you cannot hear. You would smile if you remembered how. Instead, you walk faster. A vendor pushes a cart of coal past you, his boots thudding heavily against the stones. He doesn't look at you. No one does. Or rather, they look only once, then look away quickly. You see it in their faces, the flicker of fear, of pity, of wanting to forget what they just saw. You swallow hard. Near the edge of Smithfield, your legs almost give out. You stumble against a lamppost, gripping it with both hands as a wave of dizziness drags your vision sideways. The ground tilts. Your breath catches. For a heartbeat, you think you might collapse right there in the street. But then, a voice. Soft, low, right behind you. Are you all right? You turn too, quickly. The world spins. You steady yourself against the lamppost. When your sight clears, you see her, a woman in a dark shawl, face lined, eyes gentle in a way you haven't seen in months. She studies your trembling hands, the pallor of your skin, the sweat on your brow. You're ill, she murmurs. You should sit. You shake your head. I need the apothecary. Her brows pull together. They won't open for hours yet. Your breath freezes. Your chest tightens painfully. Hours? You thought it must be nearly mid-morning. You look at the dim light more carefully. It is not. Daybreak stretching toward 9 o'clock. It is barely dawn. The woman's face softens. Come, sit a moment. You look ready to fall, but you step back, forcing your legs to move again. I can't stop, you rasp. Her expression flickers. Concern shifts into something like understanding, a recognition of symptoms she has seen before. She nods slowly, stepping aside. Then be careful, she whispers. You do not answer. You can't. Your legs feel hollow, barely attached to you, but they carry you forward, past the stalls, past the early workers, past the lanterns, still lit against the morning gloom. When you finally reach the apothecary's door, the sign in the window confirms your fear. Open at 10. Your breath trembles so violently it hurts. Your whole body rebels, knees wobbling, stomach cramping, ribs tightening in a vice. You sway where you stand, forehead pressing against the cold glass of the shop door. 10 o'clock is hours away. Hours. Impossible hours. You slide down the door until you are sitting on the stoop, back pressed to the wood, hands buried in your coat sleeves to hide the shaking. The ache beneath your ribs rises, again slow and certain, a familiar cruelty, a hunger that consumes more than the body. You breathe shallowly, letting your head fall back against the door. You should not be alive after last night. You should not be walking. You should not be sitting outside this shop waiting for mercy. And, as your heart stutters once more, just once, a tiny skip of rhythm, a warning bell, you understand something even more terrifying than the empty bottle. You are not sure you'll still be alive. By the time the apothecary opens, you don't remember drifting into that half-sleep on the apothecary's stoop. One moment you were forcing yourself to breathe in shallow, steady pulls of air. The next, the world had softened, blurred, thinned to a fragile whisper of light and sound. You weren't asleep, not fully. You hovered in a place between waking and dreaming, where the cold seeped deep into your bones and the ache beneath your ribs pulsed like a distant drum. A footstep woke you, then another. You jerked upright, heart hammering painfully against your sternum. The sudden movement sent a lance of dizziness through your skull. You pressed a hand against the door to steady yourself, blinking hard as 3 figures passed on the street, railway men walking to the early shift, boots striking the cobblestones in perfect rhythm. None of them looked at you. You weren't surprised. You stood slowly, too slowly, your knees buckling once before you caught yourself. Your breath came in sharp, broken pulls. Every part of you trembled. Waiting outside the apothecary had become a sentence your body could no longer bear. You walked. Not toward home, not toward the chemist, not in any direction you consciously chose. Your feet carried you toward Long Lane. The morning fog was still thick, so thick it blurred the buildings into pale, wavering shapes. You moved through it like a shadow, leaning against walls when the world swayed too violently. Your hands were numb inside your sleeves. Your breath trembled in clouds that vanished instantly. A horse-drawn cart rumbled past, and for a single terrifying second, your legs gave out entirely. You stumbled into the street, knees hitting the stones hard. A sharp cry escaped you, more surprise than pain. The driver shouted something indistinct, yanking his reins hard. The cart veered just far enough to miss you, wheels screaming against the wet cobblestones. The horse reared, snorting clouds of steam into the cold morning air. You pushed yourself upright, apologizing through chattering teeth. Your voice cracked on the words. The driver muttered angrily and moved on, casting one last look over his shoulder, half pity, half warning. You staggered back toward the pavement. Your heart fluttered again. Not a skip this time. Not yet. A flutter like a bird trapped behind your ribs, trying to escape through bone and flesh. You pressed both hands to your chest, breath dissolving into thin whimpers. The pain radiated outward, folding around your lungs like something tightening. Long lanes stretched ahead of you, fog pooling in the dips between stones. A few market stalls began to open, bread sellers, fishmongers, a man arranging crates of produce. Their voices drifted through the mist. None of them noticed you. You gripped a lamppost, leaning your full weight against it as a fresh wave of dizziness swept over you. Your ears rang, your vision dimmed at the edges. You could feel your heartbeat stumbling, trying to keep pace but already losing the rhythm. You needed laudanum. You needed warmth. You needed anything that would hold your body together for just a few more hours. Your legs folded. You hit the pavement hard, a sharp thud that knocked the air from your lungs. The stones scraped your palms. Your breath stuttered, catching halfway in your throat. You tried to push yourself up, but your arms trembled violently and refused to hold you. A passerby finally paused. A woman, mid-30s, carrying a wrapped loaf under her arm. "Sir," she said softly, kneeling beside you. "Are you hurt?" You tried to answer. You tried to tell her you were fine. You tried to smile, to lie, to wave her away. But the words would not come. Only a shallow, fractured breath. Her brow furrowed. "You look fevered. Let me fetch help." Panic surged painfully through you. "No," you rasped, grabbing her sleeve weakly. "No, doctor." She stared at you long enough to understand something wasn't right. Something deeper than fever. Something darker than illness. You released her arm, coughing weakly. A thin string of saliva fell onto the stones. Your chest convulsed once, violently. She flinched, hand hovering near your shoulder as though afraid to touch you but unwilling to leave you. "Please," she whispered. "You need to go inside somewhere warm." But you couldn't move. Your limbs felt filled with sand. Your head hung forward. Your pulse trembled like a fraying thread. The woman looked around as though searching for someone, anyone who knew you, who could claim you, who could take responsibility for the collapse happening in front of her. But no one stepped forward, because you had no one left. After a moment, she set her loaf down and gently brushed your hair from your face. "Hold on," she murmured. "Just hold on." You tried. God, you tried. But your heart faltered again, sharp, painful, jarring. A blow from inside your own chest. Your body slumped sideways onto the cold stones of Long Lane. The woman called out for help. A door slammed open. Footsteps rushed toward you. Hands lifted you, voices overlapping, urgent, frightened. You felt all of it dimly, like sound through thick wool. Your vision blurred. Your breath trembled. Your grip on the world loosened. And the last thing you saw, through the rising fog, was a pale figure at the edge of the street, watching, still, head tilted ever so slightly, as though she had been waiting for this moment all along. You wake in a dim, unfamiliar room, air thick with the heavy scent of herbs and damp cloth, light slanting through shelves stacked with bottles of every shape and shade. Your breath comes in shallow, trembling pulls. A wool blanket is wrapped loosely around your shoulders. Your shirt is unbuttoned. At the collar, someone has propped you against a wooden chair. For a moment, you can't remember where you are. Then the door creaks. The apothecary steps inside. His expression is not warm, not relieved, not even surprised. It is tight, jaw clenched, eyes weary, as though he has seen this scene too many times, too often, too late. You collapsed on Long Lane, he says quietly. They carried you here. You try to speak, but your throat feels scraped raw. Your tongue clings to the roof of your mouth. The words come out broken. I need laudanum. He closes his eyes for a beat, just one, but it is enough to tell you everything. When he opens them again, his voice is flat. No. The refusal hits you harder than the fall on the cobblestones. Your breath stutters. Your ribs curl inward, as if protecting the ache that explodes beneath them. You grip the arms of the porse chair, fingers clawing at the wood. I need it, you rasp. Please. You need rest, he replies. You need food, water, air, but you don't need laudanum. He steps closer, examining your face. His eyes scan your sunken cheeks, the tremor in your jaw, the faint bluish color around your lips. You're in withdrawal, he murmurs. Dangerous withdrawal. And based on how your pulse was when they brought you in, he hesitates. You're close to stopping entirely. Your heart thuds unevenly, as if proving his point. You shake your head too fast. The room tilts. He reaches forward to steady you, but you jerk away, gripping the chair harder until your knuckles turn white. I can't, you whisper. I can't go without it. Please, just enough to get me through. Just enough to stand. No, his tone is sharper now. You're killing yourself. You're not the first I've seen like this, and most don't get as far as my door. He turns away, pacing once across the small room, running a hand through his graying hair. You see the strain in his movements, guilt, frustration, fear. Not fear of you, but for what you represent. The endless line of broken bodies laudanum leaves in its wake. You swallow hard. A thin string of saliva clings to your lip. You wipe it with a shaky hand. Just enough. You repeat, voice cracking. I won't make it through today. The apothecary stops pacing. His back is to you. His shoulders sag. If I sell to you now, he says softly, I won't see you tomorrow, or the day after. Something cold and sharp pushes up beneath your ribs. Panic, real panic. Your breath comes in fast, painful gasps. You try to stand, but your legs give out instantly. You collapse to your knees, the wooden floor slamming hard against bone. I'll die without it. You choke out. I'll die. He kneels beside you. His voice softens, but his resolve does not. You'll die with it. Your vision blurs first with tears, then with dizziness. You clutch his sleeve, desperate, fingers trembling so hard you can barely hold on. I'm begging you, you whisper. I'm begging. He gently removes your hand from his arm. I'm sorry. The words hollow you out. The ache flares so violently you fold inward, forehead pressed to the floorboards. Your chest heaves. Your pulse stumbles. A thin whimper breaks from your throat, pitiful and raw. I'll fetch water, he says quietly. And broth. You must drink. He stands, turning toward the door. You lift your head, weak, broken, a dying thing struggling for breath. And behind him, through the sliver of window above the shelves, you see her, the pale girl, standing across the narrow street, watching you, still, head tilted in that same terrible way. Your breath stops, your blood goes cold, your nails dig into the wood. Please, you whisper, eyes fixed on the window. Please don't leave me here. But the apothecary does not hear the true fear in your voice. He steps out of the room. The door closes behind him. and you are alone with the shadows, the shaking, the failing rhythm of your heart, and the pale girl watching from the street, as if she already knows that you won't survive the day. For several long seconds after the apothecary leaves, you cannot move. Your breath hitches in shallow, desperate pulls. The room tilts. Your fingers dig into the floorboards hard enough to make your knuckles burn. The ache beneath your ribs pulses slow, rhythmic, strangely deliberate, as if responding to something outside you. The window is small, set high in the wall. It should not allow a clear view of the street, and yet you see her, the pale girl, unmoving, watching, her dark hair hanging in a curtain around her thin shoulders. Your heart stumbles, your throat tightens. A thin sound escapes you, half gasp, half plea. You push yourself upright, every joint in your body shaking as if the bones inside are trying to rattle free. You stagger toward the window, leaning heavily on the counter as the shelves of jars blur around you. She doesn't vanish this time. She doesn't retreat into fog or disappear behind passing carts. She stands, perfectly still, perfectly silent. Her head tilts, not curious, not confused. The tilt is precise, almost mechanical. Your breath trembles. Please. You don't know who you're speaking to, her, the apothecary, the universe, the ache in your chest. Please don't. A sudden knock echoes through the small room. You whirl around, heart lurching hard enough to send a wave of pain down your left arm. The door shakes again, 3 soft taps, gentle, slow, as familiar as your own heartbeat. Tap, tap, tap. You back away instinctively, bumping into a shelf. Bottles rattle dangerously. Something sharp and herbal crashes to the floor, its scent erupting into the air. Your breath hitches as you stumble toward the opposite wall, palms flat, sweat slicking your fingers. The tapping stops. Silence folds over the room like a thick blanket. You hear footsteps outside, not hurried, not worried, steady, slow, each one deliberate, as though whoever stands beyond the door knows exactly how much each step unsettles you. You whisper, voice threadbare, "Don't come in." The footsteps pause. Then the doorknob turns. Your entire body locks, rigid with fear. The door opens a sliver. A shadow spills across the floor. Still with us? The apothecary steps inside, carrying a bowl of broth and a cup of water. The tension breaks just enough for you to gasp out a breath, knees nearly buckling with relief. He sees how tightly you're pressed against the wall, how pale you've gone, how wide your eyes are. "Easy," he murmurs. "You're safe." You shake your head violently. "No, no, someone was at the door." He freezes, slowly sets the bowl down, listens. The hallway outside is silent. "No one's here," he says after a moment, "but you know better. Something was here. You felt it in your ribs. You heard it in your bones." You look back toward the window, and your stomach drops. She's gone. The pale girl's silhouette has vanished, as if she never stood there at all, as if she dissolved into the morning fog. You sink into the chair, chest heaving. The apothecary kneels beside you. "You need to eat," he says. "Your heart won't survive another collapse." You stare at the broth, warm, real, safe. But your hands won't reach for it, because every time you blink, every time the ache pulses, every time the shadows shift at the edge of sight, you feel her, closer now. Inside the building, inside the walls, you clutch the arms of the chair, nails scraping wood. "She's following me." You whisper, voice breaking. She knows I'm alone, she knows I'm weak. The apothecary studies you with a pained expression, part pity, part helplessness. "There's no one here but you and me," he says softly. But you cannot believe him, because as he speaks, your eyes drift toward the doorframe behind him, where something pale flickers just for an instant. A hand, a sliver of a face, a tilt of a head, and then it's gone, leaving only your trembling breath. and the cold certainty creeping through your bones. You are not hallucinating anymore. You are being watched. The apothecary stays close as you struggle to sit upright, but his presence feels thin like a fragile layer between you and something pressing in from all sides. He tries to coax you toward the bowl of broth again, but your hands refuse to move. They tremble violently in your lap, fingers twitching as though driven by a will that isn't entirely your own. "You need strength," he murmurs. "You won't make it through the day like this." You swallow hard, throat tight. "I can't stay here." The apothecary straightens slowly. "Where do you think you'll go?" "Anywhere else." Your voice cracks, because you know exactly what you mean. Anywhere she isn't. You stand abruptly, too abruptly. Your knees buckle, and you grab the edge of the counter to keep from hitting the floor. The apothecary reaches out, but you flinch away, breath trembling. "I'm leaving," you rasp. "Sit down," he says firmly, but you're already moving toward the door. The apothecary's voice sharpens. You're in no condition to walk. You ignore him. You press your palm flat against the door, trying to steady your breath. Your reflection in the window pane beside you is shocking sunken eyes, grey skin, lips tinged with blue. You look less like a person leaving a room and more like someone escaping their own grave. You pull the door open. The hallway breathes cold, dim, narrow, silent, but you feel it instantly, a presence in the shadows, lingering like the aftertaste of something bitter. You grip the railing, teeth clenched. The hallway stretches before you, long and dark, each step seeming farther away than the last. "You don't want to go out there," the apothecary warns behind you. You do not answer. You cannot tell him the truth, that the danger is not the street outside, but the building itself. You step into the hall. The floorboards creak beneath your weight. The light from the apothecary's room spills onto the hallway floor but stops just short of touching the far wall, leaving a thick pocket of shadow. You stare into it. Something moves. A flicker, a flutter, like a pale dress shifting in the dark. Your heart jumps painfully, nearly stopping mid-beat. The ache under your ribs sharpens into something cold and merciless. You grab the railing, breath halting. "Did you see her?" You whisper. The apothecary stands in the doorway behind you. "There is no one here," but even he sounds unsure now. You take one step forward, just one. The boards beneath your foot groan loudly, echoing down the hall, and the darkness ripples, not the shadows, the darkness itself, as though something inside it stirred. A shape steps forward, small, pale, head tilted. Your lungs seize. She is closer than she has ever been, close enough to see the outline of her thin arms, close enough to see how her dark hair clings to her cheeks, close enough to see that her eyes are wrong, too dark, too deep, two pits of still, endless night. You stagger backward, slamming into the wall. The apothecary grabs your arm to steady you, but you wrench away, breath breaking into sharp, terror-stricken sobs. "She's here," you choke out. "Don't you see her? Don't you?" You look at him. He looks at the empty hallway. Empty. Empty to him. But you see her, still standing there, still staring, still waiting. The apothecary grips your shoulders. You need to lie down. You're hallucinating. You shake your head violently. "No, no. She followed me. She followed me from my room, from the street. She's been waiting." You look into the hallway again. She has moved. Now she stands halfway down the corridor, still, silent, head tilted further, as though the bone might snap. Your pulse races helplessly. You stumble backward into the apothecary's room, breath rapid and shallow. He places a hand on your back to steady you, but you shove the door closed before he can say anything else. You press your forehead to the wood, trembling from scalp to heel. On the other side of the door, a soft sound, like fingertips, brushing down its surface, slow, testing, learning the shape of you through touch alone. The apothecary pales. What was that? You back away, chest heaving. She wants me. She keeps getting closer. I can't stay here. I can't. A sudden, delicate tap sounds at the door. Then another, then another. 3 gentle knocks. As familiar as your own heartbeat, as patient as a predator. You collapse into the nearest chair, hands over your ears. The apothecary stands frozen, staring at the door with wide eyes. He heard it. This time, he heard it. The knocking stops. Silence stretches thin and tight through the room. The apothecary whispers, voice hollow. "We're not alone." Your body stiffens. Your breath halts. A cold certainty settles across your shoulders like a heavy shroud. She has followed you through the streets. She has entered the building. She has stood in the hallway, and now she has found the door. The apothecary does not move for a long time. Neither do you. You sit hunched in the wooden chair, ribs aching with every breath, sweat cooling on your skin in thin, uncomfortable beads. Your hands tremble uncontrollably, still half raised as though trying to shield your ears from a sound that may come again. He stands by the door, breath shallow, eyes fixed on the grain of the wood, as if he can see through it, as if he expects the knocking to return at any second. His rigid posture tells you more than any denial ever could. He heard it. He knows it wasn't a trick of your mind. He knows something stood on the other side. The silence stretches. It is thick, stifling, alive. Then something shifts in the room. A faint breath of air moves across your cheek, not a breeze from a window, not the settling of an old building, but something colder, more deliberate. You flinch, pressing your back harder against the chair, trying to flatten yourself into the wood as if becoming smaller might make you disappear. The apothecary slowly turns his head. He feels it too. The air is wrong. He steps away from the door, closer to you, his hands uncertain, hovering near your shoulder without quite touching. "We will wait," he murmurs. "Whatever that was, it will pass." But you shake your head weakly. She doesn't pass. She follows. He closes his eyes for a moment, jaw tightening, as if the weight of your words presses against something inside him, some old fear, some old memory. When he speaks again, his voice is steadier than before, but thin at the edges. "You need rest. Let me help you to the bed." "No," you whisper, recoiling. "She'll get closer." She isn't real, but the way he says it betrays him. The way his eyes keep sliding toward the door, the way he flinched when the air moved, the way his fingers trembled ever so slightly when he reached for the bowl of broth. You both know something is wrong in this room. Very wrong. Your chest tightens suddenly, not the familiar ache of withdrawal, but something sharper. A stabbing pain spreads beneath your ribs, stealing your breath. You curl forward, clutching your shirt, gasping. The apothecary kneels beside you instantly. "Try to breathe slowly," he says. "Deep breaths." "I can't," you rasp. Your heart lurches violently, once, twice, then falls into a rapid, irregular rhythm that sends panic racing through your veins. You clutch the edge of the chair so hard your fingernails dig into the wood. The room trembles at the edges. The shelves blur. The warm glow of the lamp dims. The walls shift. At first you think it's just your vision, your body threatening to faint again. But no, they expand slightly, then contract, expand, contract, like lungs, like something breathing. A soft creak echoes through the boards beneath your feet. The apothecary hears it. His head snaps toward the wall. "Is someone in the next room?" he whispers. But you know it isn't a person. The walls inhale again, a long, slow pull of the air around you, and with each breath the room seems to take, the shadows stretch closer across the floor, reaching toward you with cold, thin fingers. You scramble backward, almost, falling from the chair. The apothecary grabs your arm to steady you, but his grip is weak, his eyes wide in horror. Something taps against the floorboards, not at the door this time. Beneath you, tap, Tap, tap. You gasp violently, clutching your chest as the pain spikes. Your heart flutters in. Your throat. A thin wheeze escapes you. She's under the floor. You choke out. She's everywhere. She's in the walls. The apothecary tries to pull you toward him, pulling you into the circle of lamplight as though light alone might protect you. No, no, stay with me. Look at me. Breathe. But your eyes are fixed on the wall, because something else is happening. A shape, faint, pale, wrong, presses against the surface of the plaster. Not fully formed. Not fully here, just the suggestion of a hand, thin fingers, long, delicate, pushing outward, stretching, the wallpaper like damp cloth. Your breath stops. The apothecary goes rigid. The wall pushes again. A second hand, a curve of a cheek, a dark socket where an eye should be. You scream without sound, your throat too tight to make noise. The apothecary finally snaps out of his terror. Out, he shouts. We need to leave now. He drags you toward the door. Your legs don't work. Your chest burns. Your heart feels like it's collapsing in on itself. Behind you, the wall heaves as if something inside it is about to break through. The apothecary yanks the door open, and the hallway beyond is full of fog, thick, white, unmoving. At the far end of the corridor stands the pale girl, closer than you have ever seen her, close enough to see the hollow curve of her cheeks, close enough to see the wet shine along her lips, close enough to see that her eyes are not eyes at all, just two endless pits of black. She takes a step toward you, and the walls behind you exhale. You don't remember making the choice to run. One moment, the pale girl stands at the end of the fog-choked corridor, her hollow eyes locked on yours, the walls behind you swelling like lungs, preparing to scream. The next, your body lurches forward, propelled by terror so complete it bypasses thought entirely. Your legs move before your mind can follow. The apothecary grips your wrist, nearly dragging you into the thick fog of the hallway. Your heartbeat stutters painfully, each uneven thud sending sparks of dizziness up your spine. Still, you stumble forward, one hand scraping along the wall for balance. The fog swallows sound, your breath, your footsteps, your whispered pleas, all muffled, as though you're running through wool. Behind you, a soft sound rises, a gentle scraping, a slow, deliberate drag of something light along the wall. You don't look back. You can't. The stairwell yawns open ahead, narrow, steep, the wooden railing glistening with condensation from the morning damp. You cling to it with one trembling hand, descending step by step, though your body screams for speed. The apothecary rushes ahead for a moment, turning back to grab your elbow. Careful, he hisses. If you fall, but his voice cuts off, because he hears it too. A second set of footsteps, soft, nearly weightless, descending the stairs behind you. Not hurried, not clumsy, not human. You choke on a breath, clutching your ribs as they flare with sharp pain. Your heart stumbles again, once, twice, as if tripping over its own rhythm. Your knees sag. Stay upright. The apothecary snaps, voice tight with fear he can no longer hide. You force your legs to obey, though your vision swims. Every step feels like walking on glass. Halfway down the staircase, the fog thins just enough for you to see the street door below. Closed, solid, a promise of escape. You descend faster, hand sliding down the railing, boots slipping dangerously on the damp wood. Then, a sound rises from the landing above you. Tap, tap, tap. 3 soft knocks. Not on the door this time. On the stairs' wooden boards. You freeze. Your blood stops. The apothecary grips your arm hard enough to bruise. Move, he whispers. Not loudly, not forcefully. A terrified plea. You make it down 2 more steps, and then the temperature drops. Not the chill of London fog, not the cold of morning air. A deeper cold, dead cold, a cold that slips beneath your skin and settles there like a stone in your lungs. You look up. The pale girl stands at the top of the stairwell, not walking, not climbing. She simply appears. Still, silent, her head tilted downward so she seems to be looking at you from under her own hair. You gasp, a strangled, broken sound. Your grip tightens around the railing. Your knees threaten to buckle. Her face is clearer now in the soft grey light. Skin almost translucent, lips colourless, hands hanging at her sides like wilted leaves, and her eyes, two deep, hollow pits, shift, not blinking, not widening, not moving in any way a person's eyes should, but shifting like black water rippling in a bowl. The apothecary steps in front of you, one arm extended. "Stay back!" he shouts, voice cracking. She doesn't react. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't even blink. She takes one step down, just one. It is enough. Your heart lurches violently, so hard you nearly fall. Pain radiates up your neck and down your left arm. Your breath seizes. Your vision whites out at the edges. You cling to the railing with both hands, trembling so hard your bones ache. "Don't look at her," the apothecary shouts. But you are looking. You cannot look away. Your body frozen in terror. The girl takes another step, and the stare beneath her groans. Not a normal groan. A deep, hollow sound, like the wood itself is exhaling in fear. The apothecary yanks your sleeve hard. "We have to go now." You stumble down the remaining steps, nearly falling. He throws his weight against the door. It bursts open with a harsh crack. Fog spills inside. Cold air floods your lungs. You collapse onto the street, gasping, palms scraping stone. Behind you, a sound, a whisper. No words, just breath, just the faintest exhale behind your ear. You spin around. The stairwell is empty. The doorway gapes open, dark and still. No girl, no shadow, no movement, but the ache in your chest deepens. Your pulse flutters like a trapped bird. Your lungs seize in shallow, panicked breaths. The apothecary kneels beside you. "It's not safe here," he whispers. "Not for you. Not anymore." You want to answer, but the world tilts. Your heart stutters. And as the fog thickens around you, you realize she did not vanish. She did not leave. She is simply waiting for the moment. Your heart stops. You try to stand, but your legs fold beneath you as though made of soaked paper. The cold stones of the street bite into your palms, sharp enough to pull a strained gasp from your throat. Fog curls in thick, coiling ribbons around your knees, climbing higher, swallowing the shape of your body as though the city itself is trying to draw you in. The apothecary grips your shoulders with trembling hands. His breath is ragged. His face is drained of color. "We need to get you somewhere safe," he whispers. "Somewhere." She can't follow, but you shake your head weakly, not in refusal, not in defiance, because you know the truth. There is no place left in London where she won't find you. Your heart flutters again, wild, uneven, a frantic Morse code beating against the inside of your ribs. The apothecary notices. "Stay with me," he pleads. "Try to breathe." You do, try, but your breath is thin. Your lungs feel half full of cold air and half full of fear. Each inhale comes with a faint whistle. Each exhale with a pulse of pain that radiates outward from your sternum. The world tilts, not violently this time, slowly, softly, like a boat drifting off its moorings. You clutch the apothecary's coat to keep from sliding sideways into the thick fog. Shapes move at the edges of your vision. Not people, not horses, not anything with weight. Just faint silhouettes, rising and collapsing as the fog drifts in restless waves. You blink hard. Your vision swims. The apothecary tries to lift you to your feet. Your knees buckle instantly. He curses under his breath, surprising himself, then slides an arm beneath your shoulders. Come on, lean on me. We'll go to the watch house. They'll have help. The watch can't help. Your voice is barely a whisper, pressed thin by the weight around your chest. He doesn't answer. He just drags you forward, step by step, through fog that grows thicker with every breath. You stagger beside him, your boots scraping across stone. The street bends strangely in your vision, as if the buildings lean away from you in wide arcs. The lamplights blur into long streaks of gold. Everything feels distant, muffled, the world fading at the edges. Your heart stutters again, this time harder. A sharp, electric pain shoots down your left arm. You gasp, doubling over. Your legs buckle. The apothecary tightens his grip, eyes widening in horror. No, no, stay with me, look at me, don't collapse, not now. But it's already happening. Your chest constricts. Your breath catches. Your ribs feel clamped by an invisible hand. You sink to your knees. The apothecary kneels with you, shaking your shoulders gently, trying to keep your eyes open. Stay awake, he whispers. Stay awake. Please stay awake. You try, but the fog around you thickens. Not just the fog of the street, but the fog behind your eyes, that slow, creeping dimness that pulls the world away bit by bit. Your head droops, your fingers twitch uselessly against stone, your lips part in shallow, panicked breaths. And then, behind the apothecary, through the milky veil of fog, something takes shape. A small figure, still, silent, her outline faint at first, then sharpening as she steps closer. The pale girl. You feel more than see her. A cold that slides beneath your ribs, a tightening in your throat, a stutter in your heart. She approaches with slow, measured steps. The apothecary notices your widening eyes and turns, but she is not there for him. She never was. She walks toward you alone. The fog parts around her like a curtain. Her bare feet do not make a sound. Her head tilts in that impossible, unnatural angle, as though her neck bends on no bone you could name. Your heart gives another violent lurch, a painful, staggering stutter. You clutch your chest, fingers digging into your coat. The apothecary tries to pull you back, but you sag forward, gasping. Your vision darkens at the edges. Your ears ring. Your breath becomes thread-thin, and the pale girl kneels beside you. Her face inches from yours, her empty eyes widening, her cold breath brushing your cheek. The apothecary panics. "Don't look at her!" he screams, but it's too late. Your heartbeat falters, then slows, then slips. The pale girl leans closer, whispering something you cannot hear. The apothecary shakes you violently. Your head lolls, your eyes blur, and as your heartbeat fades into a weak flutter, as the fog wraps you like a shroud, as the world dims into quiet, colorless shadow, you understand the final truth. She was never following you. She was waiting for you, waiting for the moment your heart finally gave out.